Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
So it's different, as you know, that with equity comes... Class, please welcome the new student, Robert.
Welcome, Robert!
Well, thanks for the warm welcome, Teach. It's lit, no cap.
Take a seat. White privilege is something
Welcome.
that each and every one of you
Thank you.
bigots and colonists have.
Wow.
Oh my god. Is that Rez?
Kick the fathers out the house, send the mothers back to work. Let the school system parent your children right from the birth. Make them meal, feed them pills, confuse them about what's real. Tell them facts don't really matter, it's all about how you feel. Science and math erases, history let's erase it. Indoctrinate a whole generation, you can't escape it. It's bigger than American politics, you're an accomplice. White people, racists and bigots, and you're a colonist. If you want freedom, we'll encourage to do the opposite. It's toxic masculinity, if a man is too confident. Excuse me, what's a woman? Well, I am not a biologist. Common sense is really not common when you're a communist. Parents that care about their kids, let's call them terrorists. It's cool to be a feminist and an environmentalist. And if you love the country, that makes you a white supremacist. Don't even try defending it, cause what you say's irrelevant. Put your hands up, everybody stand up. The whole world going mad, bruh. 2 + 2 = 5. You a racist if you don't think that add up.
You better not be in here telling these children that men can't get pregnant.
Of course not, Mr. Smith.
And did you tell all the white children that they are racist?
And colonizers and bigots, yes.
Very good.
Go and put your hands up, everybody stand up. The whole world going mad, bruh. 2 + 2 = 5. You a homophobe if you don't think that adds up. Don't have children. If you do, then abort them. If your neighbors don't comply with the government, then report them. If you have independent thoughts, then just ignore them. Communism's the way, democracy is too boring. Bring your kids to a drag show. Give them a couple dollars to put right up in their asshole. Don't worry about the Epstein flight logs. The case is closed, so don't even go and ask, bro. Trust the WHO and CDC. None of our politicians work for the CCP. White kids are born racist. If you disagree, that makes you a damn racist. Study CRT. In today's lesson, men can get pregnant. Put your hands down, no more questions. Don't say pedophile, just say ALA. Adults that like adolescents. Go and put your hands up, everybody stand up. The whole world going mad, bruh. 2 + 2 = 5. You a racist if you don't think that add up. Go and put your hands up, everybody stand up. The whole world going mad, bruh. 2 + 2 = 5. You a homophobe if you don't think that adds up.
We want to drive the whole world crazy. Brainwash kids from the time they're babies. We want you dependent and lazy. They never learn, honestly, it amazes me.
Go and put your hands up, everybody stand up. The whole world going mad, bruh. 2 + 2 = 5. You a racist if you don't think that add up. Go and put your hands up, everybody stand up. The whole world going mad, bruh. 2 + 2 = 5. You a homophobe if you don't think that adds up.
We want to drive the whole world crazy. Brainwash kids from the time they're babies. We want you dependent and lazy. They never learn, honestly, it amazes me.
So I went to my first Gays Against Groomers event, and I really just wanted to kind of talk about and just document everything that happened, because I feel like it's really important too.
And these young girls who are going through right now, going to school, tomboys as I am, are being so pressured by the society, by the group of friends, by the teachers, by media. It's all over the place. TikTok, they're all pushing this gender ideology on these girls, and they have no chance. They cannot fight it. Unfortunately, many of them going down this path where they just need to wait till you're adult, and then you can go ahead and do whatever you want. These young girls, these young tomboys need us to speak up for them. I've heard many detransitioners saying that they wish they had a person who told them that they're perfect just the way they are.
It was a launch party for their New York chapter, and I really, really wanted to go. just to show my support.
That only predators want children to keep secrets from their parents. Children cannot consent to anything, especially permanent decisions that will leave their body parts amputated and themselves sterilized. The majority of gender nonconforming children that we see right now will grow up to just be gay adults if they're left alone. That's why, we take this very personally. I take it very personally myself. If I were growing up in this day and age right now, I know for a fact that I would have been pressured to transition in schools. And if my parents were like some of our friends outside and bought into this madness, that I would have been medicalized as a child. And my life would look completely different right now, and it's a horrifying thought. If you would have told me when we were fighting just for the right to marry so I could marry my beautiful fiance, that's all I want. That's all I want.
I went with my boyfriend because I did not want to go into the city alone, and it is very scary going to the city alone. I should have prepared myself for the mob that would be outside of the venue, but I didn't. As soon as we got up to the venue, there were people just surrounding the whole front entrance, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. I guess I was thinking there would be like 3 people holding signs silently to the side, but no, that would be too easy. It took a lot of courage for me and my boyfriend to go up to that door because we were just surrounded by a mob of people, and the door was locked because we got there a little too early, and the door was locked, and I was freaking out. My boyfriend was freaking out. I was freaking out. There was a man next to me. So I get to the door. There was a man on the left of me. He was probably like a foot away from my face, and he has his little phone, and he goes, "Smile for the camera." So obnoxious. So I smiled. I didn't shout, I didn't argue, I just smiled. And also, what is that even supposed to do? Like, how many followers do you have? Like 10? I felt like I was in a haunted house with people following close behind you, breathing down your neck, just screaming at you. And they were following us around, and there was one girl that was just like, "Welcome to the event for extreme fascists." And I'm just like, what the hell? They were all screaming and chanting in sync like it was some sort of cult. Also, if you wanted to make a point, maybe let me hear the words that you speak instead of just shouting unintelligible nonsense at me. They were banging on railings, bins, tambourines. They cheered every time somebody approached the door, which I feel like that's just, to me, I guess that's just feels a little counterproductive. Like, why would you cheer if somebody went to the door? Anyways, that was my little thing. So here we are, my boyfriend and I were just standing in front of this door, and I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. I'm like, am I going to be able to get inside this event? And these people are just still continually just screaming at us, shoving these signs in our faces. And in a high-stressed environment like that, I did not care about, I could not hear what these people were saying. I did not care about the signs. I wasn't going to take the time to just, oh, huh, that sign, wow. No, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. So me and my boyfriend, we just scurried away, and these people were cheering that we left. We just walked down the street, and we got to a safe distance where we just sat on the curb and just were figuring out what to do next. We were going to wait until 4 o'clock because that's when the event started. We got there maybe around 3:45. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting. We decide to go back around. I was telling my boyfriend, I'm only approaching that door if I see that door wide open, because I am not going to risk it locked again and me looking like a giant idiot yet again. And then the police came. We're seeing a man get arrested, first of all, and I don't know what's happening. And then so we walked around, and the door wasn't open. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? And so I was like, oh wait, let me call the venue where this is at. So I called them, and they told me hey, the door's gonna be open for you. And I'm like, thank Thank goodness, because I don't want to just stand there and just get verbally attacked by crazy people. Thankfully, by the time we got there, there was barriers being set up, and there was policemen like just actively standing outside to make sure there was nothing was going on. And I didn't know at the time what these people were chanting, but now looking at videos I've seen online, they were chanting, "Every gender, every race, punch a transphobe in the face." Every gender, every race, Wow, such a sweet and loving community you guys are. You guys really just practice what you preach. You see these people online, but to encounter them in the wild is such a surreal experience. These people were protesting against Gays Against Groomers for apparently being anti-LGBT, for being an extreme fascist group. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, everyone has diverse opinions. This isn't a political group. It's a group about the ethical concerns surrounding children.
Being a gay man, I just wanted really basic things. And now I'm suddenly told that means I need to support 12-year-olds having their still developing breasts removed and toddlers being told that they were born in the wrong bodies. And I don't quite see the connection there. And I feel like just thinking, and this could be any one of us, thinking back to how we were growing up as teenagers, as kids, would any of us have been equipped to make these horrific lifelong choices?
If anyone sincerely thinks it's ethical to convince a child they're trans, to medically transition them, to affirm this belief as a teacher and not tell the parents, to cut off healthy young girls' breasts.
Yeah, let's give them top surgery.
And so much more that goes into this ideology. You're in the wrong. You are the fascists. You are the bigots. And you are very regressive. Stop indoctrinating youth. The warmth and a sense of community I felt within the walls of the venue just made everything fall in place for me. It drowned out the craziness that was happening outside of the venue. One by one, members of this organization shared their story, what this organization means to them, and how they got to where they are. There were moments I cheered, moments I laughed, moments I teared up. But these radicals won't listen to them. They won't listen to any sort of reason. They just don't care. All they care about is shutting other people's opinions down and scaring these people off. I was almost swayed to just walk away and not come back after the first encounter I had with them. But I'm really glad I stayed, because I would have let them win if I let them scare me off. We have seen it time and time again when these activists just go too extreme with their beliefs. A few years ago, there was a consensus of LGBT acceptance, but all of these activist organizations didn't want to wrap up shop. These people have made a living off of these organizations, and they didn't want to stop. So they decided to find something else to fight for. And it's basically the indoctrination of children. The difference between those activist groups and Gays Against Groomers is that the founders' end goal is to stop the indoctrination and grooming of children and wrap up.
A reporter asked me a few months ago, where do you see Gays Against Groomers in 5 years from now? I was like, I pray to God we do not have to exist. There is no long-term goal here. It's just end it and get out. So that's what we're here to do, and I really appreciate everybody supporting us.
That's it. That's the end goal. This group is doing incredible things, and it is far from being fascist, Nazis, anti-LGBT. All of their members are LGBT. How dare you say they are anti? The first thing that comes up when you Google Gays Against Groomers is that they're a far-right anti-LGBT organization. Yes, some of their members are conservative, but that doesn't reflect the organization. The organization has one goal in mind and one goal only: It's to stop the indoctrination of children.
Viva gorditas!
Bless you, Taco Bell.
I was overweight and looked terrible, but AIDS helped me lose 46 pounds. The AIDS diet plan helped me lose 28 pounds.
AIDS helps control your appetite so you lose weight, yet AIDS lets you taste, chew, and enjoy. And the appetite suppressant in AIDS is not a stimulant.
AIDS helped me to lose 18 pounds, and it doesn't contain anything to make me nervous.
Question, why take diet pills when you can enjoy AIDS? AIDS helps you lose weight without making you jittery.
Guys, Cody and the gang are at the park, playing football with downtown Darius Jackson.
Let's go! You're not going anywhere without your big game liquid slam.
Excellent!
Go long. This one's going downtown. Whoa!
Whoa! Now I got a full team. Yeah! Yeah!
Liquid slam!
Liquid slam!
Oh! Jesus Christ!
We gotta go! Out back! Out back!
Come on!
Hello, I don't know how to start this. This is my first time interviewing anybody. This is Ty King. He is, what would you classify yourself as? Like an ex-Antifa member?
Yeah, definitely ex-Antifa member, I would say.
Okay, so introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, my name's Ty King. I currently live in Springfield, Oregon, lived in Eugene mostly for a long time right next door. I came here from the state of Texas, wanting to get into a more liberal, artsy environment. Found that for a little bit, and then post-Trump election, everything went off kilter. Got involved with the Black Lives Matter protest. Got involved with Antifa. Got to see firsthand how things went off kilter, how people began to behave, how the police were behaving, how the militias were behaving, how the Black Lives Matter activists, Antifa, were behaving. All of it firsthand, and it just wound up scaring me away from the Democratic Party, scaring me away from Antifa, really opening my eyes to there's going to be a lot of crazy shit around the corner, and here we are.
I originally found out about you through Buck Angel, and if you guys don't know, Buck Angel is a transsexual man, and he makes YouTube videos, and he interviews great people like this, people that don't really have much of a voice, and we're just trying to amplify these voices because it's very important. So my first question is, can you share your personal journey and experiences as a former member of Antifa? What initially drew you to the movement and what led to your decision to leave?
Well, so a lot of what drove me to the movement is, I think, a lot of what drove me away from Texas. I left Texas, I want to say in maybe like 2016 or so, after I dropped out of college. You know, I just kind of saw everything through the lens of race and my being gay. And I was just like, you know, all these rednecks just don't get it. These conservative religious assholes. I stepped away from the Baptist church that I was raised in. Kind of had my atheist kick for a minute. But whenever I came up here, the thing about Eugene is it's kind of like a hub for like all sorts of people who are running away. So like half the people you meet here are from somewhere else. Abusive backgrounds, stories similar as mine. They just weren't vibing with what was back at home. Drug addiction. There's a lot of hobos that travel here. So there's just a lot of integrating here, and it's just really a boiling pot of all different people from all different walks of life, but kind of with that same similar structure of just some sort of fucked up background. So you get sucked into that. You're like, oh, your fucking dad was shitty too, or oh, your community was like this too, or oh, there's a lot of racism where you come from. Living down in South Texas, when I lived with my dad, when I was in my last 2 years of high school, I saw a lot of actual white supremacists. My father was a tattoo artist, and 24 hours a day, we were the only one in town. So like everybody and their mama are coming through from tattoos, from the gangsters, Mexican mafia, white supremacists. So like white supremacists are people that I've met in person. And you just kind of saw in the movements, it started like people recognized white supremacy and recognized how crazy it could get. And then white supremacists became Trump, became people like Tucker Carlson. They became all these different figures that had nothing to do with white supremacy, despite the fact that in Oregon, we have the highest concentration of white supremacy out of any other state in the United States of America. We have the most white supremacists per capita. Like that's a genuine fact and statistic. So for us to distract ourselves that hard and to not really look at that so much and to go after all these other factors just became odd.
So it's just kind of like everybody that has collective trauma, they like come together, and then it's just kind of you guys get into your echo chambers, and then would that sum it up? It's just like a giant echo chamber of just people just affirming and then attacking if you believe in something different than them.
Yeah, and it started off really light. I would say over the years it'd be like a couple people here and there where you're like, oh, you're a little extra woke. That's a bit over the top, but hey, I'm left, you're passionate, whatever, do your thing. And then it just begins to increase, and you see it kind of becoming like, this popular trend of like who can outwoke each other, who can out cancel who can. It becomes like the social game essentially. And yeah, everybody moving together, coming together over trauma bonding. And then you have memes and social media, which I've noticed. I've been off social media for like a year now. I gutted all of that minus YouTube. But now that I'm away from it, I see people talking in memes. I see people talking in patterns that are completely computer based, but devoid of reality. And that's the one thing I noticed was, every month there was a new cycle, a new meme. Everybody thought the same. If you didn't think the same, well, your friend dropped. If you did the meme wrong, if you posted the meme in a racist way, well, that friend's gone. And then over time, you're just left with, the people just parroting whatever you guys are all saying. And you feel emboldened by that. You feel kind of like protected and like there's a kinship there.
Yeah.
But it's just psychologically tormenting in the grand scheme of things to operate in that way.
What do you think is like the end goal for Antifa? Because like I keep trying to wrap my head around like what do they really want? Because if they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, like there's gonna be like riots every single day. There's gonna be burning buildings. Is there an end goal?
Oh, Buck Angel asked me the exact same question, and what I told him was there is no end goal for Antifa per se. They're just the destroyers. The people at the top, the elites, they're going to be the ones coming in, and they're going to construct everything that was razed to the ground. And I wanted to go on Buck Angel's podcast and discuss this because I knew it was going to take this was all going to take a crazy turn of events. Like there was the trans shooter, Aubrey Haley, I think it was. And when she went into the church and went after the pastor's kid and gunned down all those people, the response from the trans activist community was disturbing. When they all went to the city hall and they all held up 7 fingers like they lost Rue in the Hunger Games or something, one of those fingers being for the shooter, the 6 being for the other that she gunned down, I was kind of like, okay, because my theory on like school shooters and radicals and all that was essentially it's going to move from out of the schools and out of the Walmarts and out of the smaller areas, and they're going to start joining into their own gangs. They're going to start getting into their own groups, and there's going to be extremist ideologies that come along to push that. Well, fast forward 3 or 4 weeks after my Buck Angel interview on 9/11, and now we have Black Lives Matter coming out in support of Hamas. And here I'll read a statement for your audience here, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah,
because this is scary as shit, and it's starting to show. It's like that decolonization language was there for a reason. You and I are freaking colonizers. We need to be destroyed. So Black Lives Matter Chicago put out the statement, "We too understand what it means to be surveilled, dehumanized, property seized, family separated, our people criminalized and slaughtered with impunity, locked up in droves, and when we resist, they call us terrorists. We too dream of a world where our people may live freely on decolonized land. May the borders, checkpoints, prisons, police, and watch lists that terrorize our communities crumble, and may the world we built from their ashes honor those that have fallen in the struggle. In language like that, we will build a new world from their ashes. That was shit we would say in Antifa all the time. All the time. We're going to burn down that federal courthouse and we're going to erect something new. We're going to burn down that police station. We're going to burn it down, burn down the whole goddamn country if we have to get what we want. And the way this is being reported, it's being reported like it came out after the Black Lives Matter statement, but I guess this happened in 2021 in a Vice interview, thankfully, even though they're playing off it pretty hard right now. But the leader of Hamas back in 2021, when Vice was doing a lot of puff pieces for him, essentially said, and I want to take this opportunity to remember the racist murder of George Floyd. George Floyd was killed as a result of a racist ideology held by some people. The same type of racism that killed George Floyd is being used by Israel against the Palestinians in Jerusalem, the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, and in the West Bank. So they're going full on board with this. The Gaza Mental Health Foundation just in the last week or two put out a statement. The Gaza Mental Health Foundation stands in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement to demand justice for George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, and so many others, and fundamental change in a policing system that has for far too long devalued the lives of Black people. We stand with all who have experienced mental anguish, violence, and death through unjust oppression. We stand for health and healing and recognition that a society that dehumanizes a society can never truly thrive. So you got people in the Middle East over here and people in America, and they're just pointing at each other like, we see you, we got some like-minded goals here. And it's kind of seeming like this is going to escalate, and it's going to escalate really freaking hard, and it already is. I mean, they had a protest here, I guess 2 days ago in Eugene for Palestine, and some dude rolled up with a Guy Fawkes mask, and he had a paintball gun. He just started shooting in the crowd. It's just going to get fucking stupid, and these guys... Israel's done a lot of fucked up shit. They put Palestine in a state of apartheid. They have an extremely far-right government. Their government has got involved with white supremacists, which is fucking odd. The Jewish government is very, very sinful and has a lot to answer for. Hamas is a fucking terrorist group. It's one thing to stand with Palestinians. It's another to look at Hamas, who's torturing and executing and raining down missiles. There's not a single fucking Black person, minus the older ones, who have ever experienced anything like this in their lifetimes. No one in our generation of color has ever experienced anything like what's going on in Gaza, and it's disrespectful to make those comparisons, especially from people who for the past 10 years have been screaming Nazi every 5 minutes.
It's disgusting, and don't you just love how they just always manage to make it about themselves? It just baffles my mind. Like, Hamas is a terrorist group, and we should be not in support of them. And I feel like a lot of people, like, I have a friend on Instagram, and I thought she was based for a while, but then now she's slowly coming out of the woodworks, and she's talking about all of her support of Palestine. I want to say I don't have a problem with being in support of Palestine, but they always manage to figure out how to, like, beat around the bush when it comes to talking about Hamas. It's like they don't want to say that Hamas is bad. They don't want to, like, why can't you just admit that Hamas is a terrorist group and move on? Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah, and I mean, and I can give a little like context on that separation too, because like I said, Vice was putting out puff piece articles. If you were to go back in my old social medias, you'd see some pro Hamas shit, because I mean, look, over half the population is under 19 years old. They haven't had an election in over, I think, 17 years or something like that. Fathers are fucking dead. They've gone through torment. This is a 75-year struggle. This is 75 years of history. For anybody to like think overnight that they've got it figured out, I've been paying attention for this for years. I still have a lot of freaking questions. But there is the human element to it. Gaza is essentially Arkham City for brown people. It's just a big open air prison. And I fully get that. But it's what you choose to do with that. And I get that there has to be a fight to get out of that. There has to be some sort of struggle in that situation. There would just have to be. But this just is not it. And in the same sense of like, I was around a lot of white supremacists when I was younger, and I definitely left angry from that. When I think back to a lot of these people that I knew personally back when I was in South Texas, they were just some old country boys who got it from their daddy, were brought up in a really shitty situation. Yeah, they're gonna go around scream the N-word and get in fights and get Nazi tattoos, all the fucked up shit. But I guess just like the people of Gaza, they come from fucked up backgrounds too, huh? So it's like if we're gonna look at it through that lens,
Yeah.
then maybe we look at white supremacy and all these other extremist groups through that lens. The same lens I want people to look at Antifa through. It's not all bad, but when it gets to its most extreme elements and it gets to the violence and it gets to the point of just tearing each other's head off, that's when it gets bad. But I know there's probably a lot of people in Antifa right now who aren't aware of what's going on, who maybe even got into it recently, who just want to do something good, but who might get wrapped up into doing something stupid, just like Hamas, just like fucking neo-Nazis. There is no group, no ideology that has any exception to that rule, I don't think.
I used to think, like, well, I still think, but, like, I thought this was, like, a general consensus that anti-Semitism was bad. But then now when it's happening, like, to Israel, it's just kind of like, oh, like, they can all go to hell. All of the Jews in Israel can go to hell. All of the civilians can go to hell. It's just kind of like, when did we stop caring for Jewish people?
I think this just kind of goes to show a lot of these people never really fucking cared about Jewish people to begin with.
Yep.
They never really did. Otherwise, they would at least have some sort of heart in the situation. And there's a lot of pro-Palestinian protests I've been watching, and they're just that. They're pro-Palestinian. And then you get there's been lawmakers, there's been rabid activists, there's been all sorts of horrible people that just there's no separation, there's no nuance, because quite frankly, a lot of these people are just fucking dumbasses.
Yep.
They're dumbasses that want to be special and pretend they're going to be smart. It's just dumb people can't pretend to be smart. They can try all they want. A smart person can pretend to be dumb, but it don't work the other way around. And these people can try and try and try. And in the meanwhile, we're just all going to laugh and react and be like, what the fuck? And people like you and I are going to step up to the fray, and we're going to try to have these conversations to make up for all the dumbassery. Because what's happening right now is stupid.
Yep. They're very misguided. I just, it's really scary. I every day more and more, I'm just realizing that I'm like slowly losing hope for humanity. But then we have a conversation like this, and I see the light at the end of the tunnel again. I'm just like, I just want this to all to like stop. Like even my mom, she is a 63-year-old conservative, and I love her. She's awesome. And she told me, like, she's never seen anything like this before in her life. Like she's seen things, she's been through some things, but she's like, I've never seen this on such a wide scale. There is such a divide. Like even watching the movie Oppenheimer, right? I didn't know anything going into that movie, but then you see everything that's going on with like communism, and then I'm like, oh my god, this feels like what's happening today. Like it's scary. I feel like it's coming back, and it's coming back in not a very nice way.
No, and especially with the nuclear shit. Like I pay attention to a lot of the nuclear channels and prepper channels, which by the way, for anyone out there who's trying to keep up on the state of military in the world, New York Prepper, Canadian Prepper, two really great channels. But I've been watching, and in the United States, we've had about 4 or 5 nuclear bombers circling about every angle of the United States for the past 3 days.
What?
Yeah. There's been bombers, the kind of nuclear planes that activate the missile silos. So we've had one off the Oregon coast, and it was just flying in a freaking circle for a while. And they have all these refueling planes going from all the bases. Like the missiles are locked and loaded, and it's not to make the conversation seem too dark or anything like that, but there's been a part of me waiting for this interview, seriously wondering, like, will this interview ever make the light of day? Like, shit's getting scary. And meanwhile, these kids are concerned about tampons in the fucking bathroom. We got to get real here.
Yeah. That's scary. Oh my god. I'm like, I did not know. A lot of people don't know that. I think it's really important for people to know these things. I feel like it's been hard for me to talk about, like my whole shtick is like talking about the indoctrination and sexualization, mutilation of minors in the United States. I feel like it is hard to kind of, it's like this is important, but then when you hear about all these other things that are going on in the world right now, it's just kind of like, it's hard to kind of, it's just like, oh, we all might just like die today. But
and that's not to devalue anything with Gays Against Groomers,
yeah.
because like we still have to have like conversations, not the silly ones over tampons in the bathroom, but like men in the women's restroom, sports. Like there are serious things to address, and quite frankly, those things are a good distraction for me, because if I didn't have all these LGBT issues to focus on and all this stuff, well, I would be headfirst in the nuclear news day in and day out, and I've been in that place for a long time, and it's a scary place to be in. So like, it can be a productive distraction, but
yeah, that is true. I feel like this is something that we can kind of take a hold of, because this is right in front of us, and we're doing something about it. I mean, I'm in Gays Against Groomers, which still just feels like a dream to me. Like it's insane how one day I went from not having much of an audience, but then now they're giving me this opportunity to use my voice and use your voice, and I think it's incredible the types of things that they're doing, and they're not an extreme fascist group. Even like I hate that they just start like all these words, all these buzzwords like Nazi, you know, fascist. I don't know if you saw, but outside the New York City launch party, there was in chalk right outside the front door, and it said Klan rally meeting in here.
Oh my God. These fucking drama queens. Jesus Christ. Meanwhile, they would never actually go to Klan rally. It could be broadcasted all over Facebook that there's an actual Klan rally happening out in the middle of your local woods. Right? They ain't gonna show up for shit.
It's like these people just have temper tantrums over the stupidest of things, and they were just screaming. They were screaming, every gender, every race, punch a transphobe in the face, and it's disgusting. And then it's just like, if you actually listen to what the people in Gays Against Groomers had to say, like my boyfriend, he is the straightest dude ever, like the straightest, and he came with me, and then we sat down and we listened to everybody's stories, and he even told me, he was like, the vibe in here is completely different from what's outside, and these people are supposed to be in the same community. Like, these people are normal. Those people are lunatics. That's what more people need to start seeing. There is a difference, because I feel like a lot of like very far right conservatives will, a lot of them I feel like don't even know what the LGBT community even is now. And I feel like a lot of kids growing up now, we have I don't know, do you know who Sneeko is?
The name rings a bell.
He's a YouTuber, and a video was circulating of a young boy coming up to him saying that I think he was saying like we hate women, and because of what Sneeko said, and Sneeko was like, no, we love women, and then the little boy goes, yeah, we love women, but not the trans ones. And then it's just kind of like, I feel like this new wave of this very progressive push of the LGBT community is really just putting such a toll on children too. Like when I was growing up, it was fighting for like marriage rights, but then now these kids are growing up seeing actual clowns. There was an actual clown at the New York City launch party that was tooting his little horn. That's
oh God.
That's the LGBT community these kids are seeing. So now you have these two groups of kids. We have the kids that are going down this path of being indoctrinated and being put on a path of lifelong medicalization, and then we have the other half of kids that are little transphobic, homophobic people, because they don't know better, because they don't know that there's a difference between what like Gays Against Groomers stands for and then what the rest stand for. It's sick. It's really sad too. Like I even made a video talking about if I was growing up in today's society, I would hate gay people. Like I would hate everybody because just by seeing what seeing what you see in front of you just online and everything. And now I think there's more stuff coming out about how October is now like another Pride Month. There are like
Kill me.
yeah, like there are more Pride parades going on right now, and I just don't understand. It makes me so mad that these people, like, it feels like these people are winning. I know that they're winning over like big corporations, but the everyday people hopefully can see through all of this. But it's sick.
Well, and I want to say they're winning in some aspects, they're losing in some aspects, but in the aspects of where they're winning, which is just being front and center 24/7.
Yep.
So much of that is coming from the government. So much of it is coming from TikTok and the Chinese government. There's a reason Biden's bringing trans activists who can flop their tits out at the White House. Back when Biden was in college, he was a segregationist. Don't you think he might have been sitting there being like, this civil rights shit is really fucking up what we had going on. What if we just switch it and we try to pretend to get what we want by pretending to be on the side of these people? Maybe racism and homophobia and transphobia has evolved to the point where if you're willing to just vote for someone because they're gay, like fucking Pete Buttigieg, who can't handle Palestine fucking Ohio and just lets that go by, we're under attack. And where is he? He's don't worry, he's gay. Like, he met his husband on a train, so let's put him in charge of the Department of Transportation. We've done this with so many people, right down to Kamala Harris.
Yep.
It's like that's the point. Is they want people to vote for someone based on their color, their gender, their sexuality, with little to no nuance. And the voices that amplify that the most, they make sure they go to the top of the algorithm, if for nothing else, just to piss us off. It's just so nasty. The Biden administration needs to be held accountable fully. People need to go to jail. It's
yeah. And just what they're doing to Trump alone. Like, you can have whatever opinion you want of Trump, but like, I see it every single day. My mom, she watches Fox News all the time. And then she switches to CNN because she claims that she wants a different opinion. And both CNN and Fox News talk about all of the allegations. Basically, they're just trying to nail Trump because they don't want him running the country again. They're scared. These people, I feel like, are so confident that they're going to win. Like, on a surface level, the Biden administration's confident that they're going to win. But, like, that they're pussies because of what they're doing to Trump. Like, they know what they're doing. So then now it has me thinking, I'm like, was the election in 2020 actually rigged? Like, now I'm rethinking everything. And now it's just like, wow, all these people all these conservatives that I hated for so long, actually might have a point.
Yeah, and it's like, you can debate all day long about the voter machines and the ballots and the yada, yada, yada. I don't believe the whole red wave thing. I understand, like, how the mail-in ballots worked, how certain votes were going to come in over time. The New York Times story alone that exposed the Hunter Biden laptop story prior to, I think there was the Georgia elections, which were a pretty big state, in which Joe Biden, in coordination with the deep state and the CIA and whoever the fuck, decided to cover up. You couldn't even send that story through a personal message. It would delete it. Didn't matter if you were a journalist, civilian. And I don't care how many votes it swayed. As far as I'm concerned, that is a proven story, and that verifies that Joe Biden stole the presidential election, and he is not fit to be commander-in-chief. I'm not saying that means we need to instantly put Trump in his place. I am saying that maybe it's time to call for a re-election if this is the case and to get some accountability. And it pisses me off because I remember when the Hillary Clinton election went off, everybody around here I knew said that Hillary Clinton, the election was stolen from her. It was Russia. It was the FBI. Bernie, we all know the election was stolen from Bernie. We know what they did to him. Andrew Yang. We can draw all these other comparisons day in and day out, but when it comes to Trump, the brain has to shut off. And they're not going after Trump because he's a liar, because Biden's a fucking liar. George Bush was a fucking liar. Obama was a fucking liar. Sorry for dropping so many fucks here, but Jesus Christ. Like, they're all liars.
Yeah.
And it's essentially you're going after this one guy, but you're not going after him for the things that you guys did. You're not going to go after him for war crimes. You're not going to go after him for crap going on at the border. You're not going to go after him for the real things you need to go after him for, because then it would open up the floodgates and then people would have to look at you. They would have to look at the Pelosi's. They would have to look at George Bush. They would have to look at freaking everybody. And that's the thing. And there is a deep state effort to put Trump out because for all the lies he's told, the truths he tells are even scarier. We recognize that there's a deep state. We recognize that our elections are unfair. We recognize that they're pitting us against each other. Trump isn't the greatest guy on the planet. I consider myself a Trump supporter now after protesting for many years. I wouldn't want to vote for him. I would much rather have a Kennedy versus Vivek Ramaswamy. That would be a dream election for me because then I can actually struggle for who I would want to vote for. That would be really nice.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to throw this man under the bus and make him some sort of martyr here. This is ridiculous, especially when we know the FBI and the Capitol Police, they were the ones who staged January 6th. We have so much evidence. Cops literally being in the foyer, being like, yeah, we have people out there dressed as Antifa. They got little tags. They'll have colors on the muzzles of their rifles. Look out for them. Don't go after our guys. So much evidence that happened in the same weeks that they went after Trump the hardest. And then they get Trump on RICO charges in Georgia. But what happens that same week too? I think it was about 20 plus Antifa rioters, demonstrators, what have you, who were trying to do the whole Stop Cop City thing. They got hit by the same grand jury that hit Trump with the same kind of RICO charges. So it's like, tell me there's not some sort of connection here. Tell me there wasn't a trade-off there. You go after, we'll go after yours, you go after mine.
Yeah.
They're playing us all like fools.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better myself. You are so knowledgeable. I feel like the more you speak, I'm like, oh my God, I really need to I need to do my homework.
I'm just obsessed. And I'm a dishwasher, so I have a lot of time.
Yeah, is that your job? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I wash dishes and then I'm trying to get into tattooing. The state of Oregon is not friendly for people trying to get into tattooing. You have to pay like $10,000 to $20,000 to go to tattoo school, which most places are just going to scoff at, and they're going to tell you to forget everything you learned and you're going to learn it the right way now. And I'm a college dropout, so the idea of going to school and paying $10,000 to $20,000 for something that I already have a general sense of how the business operates. I lived with my dad for years in his tattoo shop. My uncle is a celebrity tattoo artist. He tattooed Lenny Kravitz, Zoe Kravitz, all sorts of different people, worked with really popular tattoo artists. So I had so much of it in my face that for the state of Oregon to be like, no, you have to go through all these bureaucratic levels to get there. I'm just like, no, I think I'd rather go down to Texas, get the traditional route, put together a good portfolio, tattoo on my family and friends, and then see if I can get in the right way.
That's crazy. I feel like what you just described, I feel like tattooing there is more regulated than, you know, putting minors on a path of lifelong medicalization. That's so,
yeah,
that's so scary.
Yeah, and like if I were to tattoo on like a 17-year-old, the way I would be charged, they would charge me like a child sex offender. It would be inappropriate contact with a minor. That's what I would get charged with. But yeah, these doctors just get to do whatever the fuck they want.
Mom, we're thirsty!
Well, I've got 2 glasses of Sunfizz coming right up.
Sunfizz, that's our favorite!
That's because there's a delicious ray of sunshine in every drop!
Come on, guys.
I'm filled with nature's goodness! Hey, what's with you people? I've got vitamins and minerals!
Trust your gut, not some cartoon character.
When you drive to Wendy's and order a single, you get more beef than the Whopper or the Big Mac. At Wendy's, you never have to ask, where's the beef?
Are they smoking? Or are they gay? It's gay to smoke.
So you're a gay man, right? You have a husband?
Yeah.
So can you talk about your experiences within the Antifa movement with your sexual orientation? Like, how did, I know with your interview with Buck, you talked about how it would kind of shift. It would go from BLM to LGBT rights and trans rights, and how does that all work? And what was your experience? What were your friends' experiences?
So I'd say as part of that, like getting into the more extreme left-wing stuff, like more around the 2015 area, if you're in the LGBT sphere, if you're gay, bi, trans, whatever, and you're in a room with people, there was like this tendency to be like, oh, this person's important. They're gay, or they're a person of color, they're this or that. And people are more willing to hear you out. So when like you have a childhood where you feel like you're not being heard or you're not expressing yourself properly or whatever may have you, that sense of importance goes to your head, and you recognize it. And I didn't try to abuse it, but it just be like, yeah, speaking on certain issues as a gay guy, this is what I think, as a gay man, we all know how the shit goes. And then getting into it once I was in it, and I'd say probably getting closer to like 2018, maybe, it starts to shift where now you start to get gay white privilege. So then you're just shoved out the door of the conversation, and then it's just like all the same things where you're just like, all right, well, I am gay, and this is my opinion on this issue. Okay, but you're white, or you're cis, or you're a colonizer. And before that, it was always like statements like, oh, we hate all white people, but not you. We hate people like this, but not you. There was always the but not you. And then just proceed to shit talk in front of you, someone that might be a little more similar to how you operate, which became infuriating. And but I was just so wrapped up in the trauma and my drinking that there was a lot of justifications for it, also based on my own politics of, okay, people are feeling a certain way about this because of this, and okay, I'm going to let it pass and I'll go have a beer with them another day, it's fine. And then you just watch these people get worse and worse and worse. And then, obviously over time, it's not about LGBT, it's not about Black rights, it's not about policing, it's about them. And if you make them uncomfortable because you didn't agree with them, then all of a sudden you're just, you're blown out of the water, and you're made to feel like a piece of shit for it. And it's like, I don't know, it's just so toxic. And you see them do it to other people too. And then you see other people in those same situations, and it's just, it's like a societal wide like abuse that's going on. And abuse isn't always physical. In this terms, it's definitely psychological. Like when you're policing what authors people are interested, how they vote, like
who you can follow on Instagram.
Yeah, just every single level of it. Like, and then to draw conclusions where there are none. There are people like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so this is a big wake up for me, is people trying to paint Star Wars as racist. And for a guy like me, who's seen every bit of Star Wars underneath the sun and will engage with it for eternity, even when I'm dead, Star Wars will still be a part of my life. Just watching people make these insane comparisons, like they're breaking down J.K. Rowling or something, it's just, I don't know. I might go on a tangent here, but
I have something to show you. Whoa, hold on. Sorry, I'm breaking things.
Hold up.
Oh my goodness!
That's mine. I'll put the scarf and a little Watchman button on it.
That's so cute! Oh my gosh! That's so adorable!
I love it. Well, I had one guy, and he tried to bring it up to me. He tried to use Watto as an example. And he's like, I mean, just look at Watto. He's dirty. He has a long nose. He's obsessed with money. And I'm just sitting here like, it's kind of like that Ralphie May bit. Sometimes you're reaching into your own racist little heart. I'm just kind of sitting there like, maybe this is on you.
Yeah, right. People that are called, like, I bet you that half of the people that were calling you, you're just a gay white cis man, like you don't have an opinion because you're white and cis. I bet you half of the people were like white girls, white women saying that you can't have an opinion. And it's just like all of these people start showing their true colors because those same women, those same people, those same white people will go on to tell Black conservatives that they're thinking the wrong way and they're racist themselves. Like, how dare you tell a black person that they're racist and that I've heard them call Candace Owens a white supremacist, and then she's just standing there on stage like, do you see me? And like Buck Angel, he's anti-LGBT, he's anti-trans, he's transphobic, and it's just like, are you kidding me? Anybody that has two eyes and a brain, they know that that's not true. It's really sad because I've seen it so much online, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that experience, because nobody should feel the need to be silenced or kind of pushed down. Like I told you, I kind of went through a situation like that in high school where a bunch of my friends would try to educate me and tell me that I'm wrong for thinking the way that I do. And that's how they get you. They make you feel like you're such a shitty person that you need to like just readjust your entire life for them and just kind of be on your hands and knees for them. And then you have trans influencers, more like a woman that got her tits chopped off and got put on testosterone to have her voice just a little lower. And then she's going on TikTok saying that you need to give her $5 because being a trans person is so hard. It's just
and
like,
do my laundry.
like it's just like, I have so much more important shit to worry about. Like, these people go on a tangent saying you need to read this book to educate yourself on Black history and what you can do for the Black community. I'm like, bitch, I work a 9 to 5. I have a dog. I have a dog to take care of. I have pet insurance to pay for my dog. Like, I don't need.
Well, and it pisses me off for me because whenever people tell me that, I just sit here and I'm like, I do. Like, I do go, I look at the historical context, I read the books, I listen to the speeches. Like, the people who come to me and tell me this are people who spend 5 to 10 minutes a day on it on their phone and think they have it all figured out. And meanwhile, I'm obsessive, like, in my own little Alex Jones type worlds in my own fucking house. Like,
yeah, I can see.
I got like Mein Kampf, Flat Earth books, the Communist Manifesto, trans shit. Like this is my rabbit hole and it's my daily life. So you have all these people who don't really care about it, who then try to come in and lecture me about it, and I just it just strikes a nerve. And then I just start recommending books myself.
Yeah, right. Like, do you know the rapper Neo?
Yeah.
Did you hear what happened with him? He was on a podcast and he was basically just going on to say, like, if his child came out as trans, like, he would talk about it with them. Like, he would sit down and reaffirm to them that they are perfect just the way that they are. And if this is a feeling down the line when they're old enough, they can re-talk about it. But then the entire world labeled him as a transphobe. And he said, because he simply just said, like, I don't want to medicalize my child, especially if this is something they could grow out of, like, and it could be a social contagion. And then so the entire world, they started going after him. And then he issued an apology saying that, I'm sorry if I offended anyone. I still stand by my beliefs, but going further, I will educate myself further on this issue.
Hell no. No. He already had himself educated.
No, that's the thing. So he said that, and then everybody was just like, all of the conservative people that I watch on YouTube, they were like, oh my God, like, this is such a cop-out. His PR team definitely wrote this. The same reaction that you did. But then he went on Instagram Live and he goes, oh no, like, I will educate myself so that I could combat people like you guys. Because that's the thing. If you actually educate yourself, like we have done, I have not educated myself to the extent that you have, but like, once you actually start opening these doors and actually really looking in, you can't just go back. Like, I can never go back to believing in all of these ideologies because they're just not true. They're just not true, and they're based around trying not to hurt everybody's feelings. But guess what? People's feelings are going to get hurt because that's just life. And
sometimes you need to get your feelings hurt. Sometimes you need to feel shame. That's not to say we should like make people in those situations feel shame, but like without those things, we're not even human.
Yep.
You know? And like, as far as that goes, like, anyone making those comments against that, thinking that's transphobic, has never lived in a house with a child going through this. Yeah. And I can say that I do, and it involves a lot of research because my mother-in-law, older generation, my little brother-in-law, he's younger. I'm in the middle, so I like have to look and try to bridge that gap and have serious hard conversations with him that don't inflate his ego, where I do have honest dialogue with him where I'm like, your pins are not enough. You can't expect everybody to bow down to you. You have to toughen up.
So my next question would be, what concerns do you have for this new generation of children being exposed to all of these ideologies?
They don't have the critical thinking skills to even remotely comprehend it. I have a mother who's an English teacher, so that's what I grew up with. It's really explored my interest. She was English history teacher, and she taught me critical thinking. And with the schools being so broken right now, especially the way they have been the past few years, she's even told me some of these kids are coming out 4 years behind. And when you don't have critical thinking and you have that in front of your face 24/7 and it's bright and it's colorful and it's flashy and all your friends are into it, there's no distinguishing it. Like, we have to get back to critical thinking in our education system, and we need to prioritize it. We need to not have it just be like, oh, we focus on critical thinking skills for a month or two and then we move on. No, the school administrations need to back off, let these teachers teach their damn kids, and they need to understand how to interpret the world around them. What I see with a lot of these kids, gender shit aside, it's like they're in a different reality. They see something that looks a little off or in society, and they kind of laugh at it. The Sound of Freedom, for example. I went to go watch that movie, and you had these kids in there that were younger, and they would laugh at certain parts of the movie, like where the kids are all in the beginning putting lipstick on and doing all that shit. These kids are laughing, and then you'd have maybe one or two friends who you'd be like, shut up, this is a movie about child rape, or da-na-na-na-na-na. But those kids calling them out are so far and few in between. But those kids also need to be fostered, and they need to be, I don't know, those kids need to be empowered. The ones who are smart enough to look at their buddies and be like, hey, shut up, man. Knock it off. Quit being a jackass. Those kids are going to be our future. But the other kids, there's just so many of them that there's got to be a lot of education that happens moving forward.
Yeah. I feel like this new generation is just becoming so desensitized. I can't say that word. To so many things around them. I think social media was probably the worst thing to ever happen to just humans. I don't think we were ever supposed to be able to connect with millions of people just right now. I can connect to so many people at once. We were never meant to be this way. And now what we're seeing is, even on Twitter or X, there's just children can get a hold of such graphic images at any point at any time of day, and it's so concerning. And these parents, I feel like it's also the way that America is right now. These parents, I feel like they could have the best intentions for their kids, but I feel like we're in a society right now where these parents have to work 2 jobs to just be able to care for their kid. They can't monitor it's debatable whether or not a child should have a phone, but a lot of the times these parents are like, well, you need to be occupied. Here's a iPad, here's a tablet, go do whatever. But they don't realize these devices are going to be raising your kids for you, and you really don't know what is on there. The horrible graphic porn that we are seeing, and just young boys are having a porn addiction, and then now you have a whole race of furries coming out to compare the two. But now it's just it's crazy. And it's crazy because when I was younger, I was at a point where I think iPhones were just starting to come out when I was in 4th grade. And then in 5th grade, I got my first iPhone. I've been on social media for most of my life now, and it's all I've ever known. And now these kids are getting it right when they come out of the womb.
Yeah, my little sister, she's in 3rd grade. She sends me TikToks, and I'm just like, oh my God, no. I'm so scared for this child. But also with that, it's there's certainly the aspect of, oh, sorry, I knocked my camera. There's certainly the aspect of parents wanting to distract their kids or give them something to do. But one thing I've been noticing lately, the past year or two, is having a way to surveil your kids. Like having a phone in case of an emergency, you know, certain phones that they'll send that still have the apps, but they have trackers in them with all sorts of special things for the parents. I think a lot of these parents right now are just so goddamn terrified of losing their children to all these variety of horrible factors that we have going on in this country that they would rather have an iPad in their kid's hand at age 5 than to have their kid fucking gone at age 5 without any way to communicate with them.
Yeah.
And that's a scary place to put the parents in.
I truly believe, like, I want to get your opinion on this too. I truly believe that, like, the way that I go out is, like, everybody's going to go out with me. Like, I feel like the world is just going to explode, or we're going to go into just a nuclear war and we're all just going to die. Like, I truly believe that that's how we're all going to go. Like, everybody is talking about climate change and all this good stuff, which is, it's great to talk about, but I'm like, I don't think there's gonna be a climate to protect. Like, the way that things are going, I don't think so.
I think there's hope in the sense that, I mean, look at the World Economic Forum, Agenda 2030. There's gonna need to be a 2030 in order to control the world by 2030, in order to have that you own nothing and be happy. When I look at this nuclear situation, unless they use the Samson option on Gaza, I feel like it would be rogue elements that would detonate a nuke first, because, I mean, so there's a really good book called The Truth Will Set You Free by David Icke, and this will be a horrible summary, but he essentially goes into, you know, the Oppenheimer times, whenever they were creating the nuclear bomb, and at first it was just going to be Hiroshima. They weren't going to fuck with Nagasaki. And they were going to have a plan put out that was essentially going to demand the Japanese surrender. And the world governments essentially got together and were like, we're going to drop another one. We're going to make a fucking example here. And from there on, essentially the doctrines of the world government was, we're going to hype up nuclear war. We're going to amplify all these missiles. We're going to get all this shit going. And whenever things get too hard, we're going to scare the populace into submission. I don't think a lot of this nuclear shit would be popping off so hard right now if they didn't want to scare us into submission. Like, there's underground cities and bunkers and tunnels, to be sure. There's escape avenues for these people. But at the end of the day, like, no one really wants to push that fucking button. Putin doesn't want to push that button. As much as the media may make it seem like, oh, they're all just trigger happy and they're willing to do it any second, they know what the consequences of that are. You know, the Kennedys, you know, Robert Kennedy talks about when he was younger and how JFK essentially set up channels with different spies in Russia in the KGB. And one of the stories he tells is they got on the phone, the little red phone they set up in the White House. And I think it was Gorbachev, I could be wrong, but someone in Russia was sitting, you know, by the docks looking out at the water. And one of the Kennedys was, you know, just kind of looking out the White House lawn and their kids. And they're both just like, we could just end this right now. We can't do this. Like, look at our kids. Look at our fucking future. And because of Kennedy being willing to go behind the government's back and set up those channels and see the humanity in who's supposed to be his adversary, they avoided it. And it just kind of goes to show, like I said, no one wants this. But they do want the control, and they'll use that as much as possible. And the World Economic Forum has got its fingers into every nation, every state. It needs to be expelled, and these people need to be arrested and held accountable. And that's not going to happen until the right and the left gets its head out of its ass and comes together. We could deal with this in a month. If all the people of America came together and we for once focused all of our energy on the people who truly deserved it, we could be in paradise by next year.
Yep.
But we don't allow for that.
Yep. Nope. And I feel like I wouldn't feel the way that I do if we had better leadership right now in America. It's so concerning. Every time that I see a video of Joe Biden, you can tell, like, I hate that everybody, like, all of the liberals are like, oh, like, he's, like, not all of them, but one of my high school teachers is on Facebook saying that he's the greatest president of all time. But then you see a video of him and then they're like, oh, that's propaganda. That's propaganda. That's not real. Or you got him on a bad day. I'm like, but this is every single video. Even in the interview with Dylan Mulvaney, I didn't even understand half of the shit he was talking about. And he, of course, he made it about himself. He started bringing his son into it, giving him all the credit. And then it completely baffles my mind that we're even here at this point in time.
Yeah. And we have to remember too, the media makes this look silly. They make it look stupid. What Biden's doing, what all these people are doing, this isn't silly. This isn't jokes. This isn't real life satire. This is malevolence. You know, like in Canada, whenever Trudeau came out in support of the Nazi veteran and they all applauded, my very first reaction, I looked over and said to my husband, is I was just like, in the first 5 seconds, he just described a Nazi. And then I was like, this is elementary school shit. How do you not know that you just described a Nazi? You're either stupid or you're evil. And literally a couple days later, Putin puts out a statement and just about verbatim said the exact same thing that I had said, that this was elementary school knowledge and that it was stupid or evil. It's like, they can't be this stupid. I believe that they're putting people in these positions and they don't know what's happening, and that's for a reason, but it's malevolence, and we need to see it for malevolence. Let's could add some more to the Eugene drama, because I kind of want to let people know what's going on in Eugene, Oregon for all the Portland news that we get. So there's this bar here called Old Nick's in Eugene, and it's a leftist bar, and I think this happened last year. Yeah, last year on October 23rd, they had a drag event for an all-age drag show, and they brought on this 11-year-old performer to come along called Vanellope Craving. She trained underneath her drag mother named Always Craving, who months prior was arrested on 12 counts of child pornography.
Oh my God.
And this child went into the care of another drag mother who was a friend of this person, and they set up the show. So Andy No, who's the white supremacist Asian reporter we have up here, basically put a word out, and there was a counter. Antifa put out a statement here saying, you know, time to gather, bash the fash, all that shit. And it was a nightmare. I didn't wind up going. I had a wedding that day. But just watching the feeds from it, you know, they brought in the kid. The way the speakers were talking in front of the kid, you know, they'd be on the microphone being like, those people out there want to hurt her, and we're here to protect her and to let her perform and have a good time. And this kid's just hearing like, oh, these people are out here want to hurt me. And meanwhile, you had a bunch of conservatives coming out and essentially being like, yeah, what the hell is wrong with this? And then, of course, Antifa and the left came out. There was a big banner that about 20 trans kids were holding, and it said, don't like trans kids, kill yourself. As if Vanellope Craving, the child in question, was trans and not a drag queen. So you had this complete conflation of issues going on. I think they wound up getting in an airsoft and paintball war by the end of it and beating the shit out of each other. Smoke grenades. They had a woman, some queer activists came painted in blue paint like a Smurf in this red bowl cut hairdo and sunglasses, and was going around telling off all the fascists and everything. And the whole display was just completely abysmal.
Yeah, I don't know how these people can justify a child. You said it was in a bar, right?
Yeah.
A child in a bar performing drag. And drag shows, like, there's a reason why drag shows are 21 and up. They're in bars. I remember when I was 18, I was thinking, like, I always wanted to go to a drag show. They seem fun. But then I always wondered, I was just like, why are they censored? Like, why can't I see one at 18? And then, like, I go on YouTube and I look at videos, and then I'm like, oh,
that makes sense.
That's why. and you made the point about Vanellope. Vanellope is a boy that's just in drag, but how much you want to bet that that kid is that kid's already on a path of medicalization, I feel like.
Yeah.
There was another, I wish I had the name of this boy, but there was another drag kid that I saw on TikTok, and he was a boy, but then he performed drag for so long with all these other drag queens. Hello, future Maria here. I wanted to clarify that this kid does not consider themselves to be in drag. I did some more digging, and it's not drag, it's ballroom dancing. That's all I wanted to say. I still think it is incredibly creepy to get up on stage in front of adults in skin-tight leather on a leash with another man. This is predatory. And this kid and their mom gets so defensive on Twitter and TikTok because people are claiming that this kid is abused. And I would argue, yes, the kid is abused. Not in the way that they are saying, though. So everybody is saying that this kid is being and doing this against his will. No, I don't think the kid is being trafficked. I don't think the kid is doing this against his will, but it is disgusting that this is being displayed for everybody to see. These videos go viral, and this video is being exposed to creeps and predators online, is what the issue is. The issue is that no child should be performing in a derogatory way like this kid is. And a good example that these people will use to combat this narrative is they talk about child beauty pageants and toddlers and tiaras, and I want to clarify that those are not okay either. I have always thought those were creepy, and it's disgusting, and I am not for any child performing in a derogatory way. This is disgusting. It's disturbing. This opens doors for predators. This kid might be having fun, a good time, but when I see this kid in a room surrounded by adults hyping this kid up, where are your parents? Do you have any friends your own age? I don't know. I have a big issue with it. That's all I gotta say. Understand how this community can actually justify that, like, that's protecting a child. Looking at the TikTok comments, half of the people that are praising this kid, I'm sure, thinks that, like, this is a good thing. Everybody is misguided. Everybody is so brainwashed and normalized to this, but there are actual predators getting off on this. And, like, that's what these people aren't realizing. And I used to be one of those people a few years back when I was in high school. I would post the little infographics on Instagram saying drag queens aren't going to hurt your kids, but I didn't know what I was saying. Like, from my point of view, it was just like, wow, these drag queens are just gay men. They want to protect these kids. But then now, but then you see the videos, you hear the stories, and then it's just like, oh, maybe we shouldn't let children around these people. Like, that it's disgusting that these people are using their identity in the LGBT community as a way to shield them. The LGBT community has faced challenges related to the infiltration of political ideologies, personal agendas, and groomers. Can you share your thoughts on whether or not the movement has been hijacked and how this may have affected its original goals and values within the LGBT community?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that the LGBT community is being hijacked. You know, you obviously can't look at every single gay, lesbian, trans, bisexual person and be like, you're hijacked, you know. But when it comes down to these organizations and who they let in and the people that they decide ultimately not to vet, you know, we're talking about the drag shows earlier with children. The big reason that a lot of that happens is the bars are inviting people in to set up their shows, and there's essentially no background check. Half these people in these instances have felonies. So kind of the same with these activist groups where there's no need to vet someone in order to let them elevate their voice like that. You have a lot of pedophiles coming into the equation. You have a lot of this groomer behavior, not in the sense of indoctrinating them with political ideology, but going into places, particularly with kids, to where they feel safe, everything's colorful, no one's batting an eye at you, and you can just pump their minds filled with whatever. And I have a friend right now who's currently experiencing some of this and is taking a kid into his home, essentially, because the mother is a minor attracted person's. And, you know, been sharing stories with me about that and some of the grooming going on there. It's not just the fucking internet. It's not just TikTok. It's not just these college elitists. This is getting into the suburbs. It's getting into the trailer parks. It's getting into everybody's lives now. And my friend who's taking in this kid started catching wind of some weird stories that was happening with the mother. And the kid essentially was saying, you know, my mom's a pedophile. It's fucking nasty. But essentially the kid looks behind the computer when the mom was on one day, and the mom was talking about age play and enjoying pretending to be a 13-year-old girl and wearing diapers and shit play and all this nasty ass shit. And, you know, the kid just kind of looked and was just like, oh, I think I just seen something that I shouldn't. And you think in this moment someone might shut the fucking laptop, back off, apologize, figure out your shit at that point. It became a defense. This is okay because I was traumatized. This is how I cope. This is legal. There are communities for this. Looking at this 15, 16-year-old child and saying, this is what mommy does. This is fine. So
that's fucking sick. It's disgusting. It's twisted. I feel like you hear about the men pedophiles, like it's you never hear about the women. A woman can be a predator too. And these people within this very progressive extreme movement, I feel like they want to normalize so many things. If we keep letting children consent to all of these things, it's going to come down to a child being able to consent to having an adult relationship. That's ultimately what I feel like this movement is heading towards, and it's really disgusting.
First, they're sour. Then they're sweet. Sour, sweet, gone.
You know, this was me 5 years ago, and it's still me. Because I confess I'm a waistline watcher from way back. Well, that's enough for today. Now for a lively lift. Ice-cold Coca-Cola. There's no waistline worry with Coke, you know. Actually, this individual-sized bottle has no more calories than half a grapefruit. Another thing, the cold, crisp taste of Coke is so satisfying, it keeps me from eating something else that might really add those pounds. Coke's a natural, wholesome blending of pure food flavors. I guess that's why everyone likes the refreshing new feeling you get, only from not-too-sweet Coca-Cola. And no wonder. Lively, lifty Coca-Cola provides a welcome bit of quick energy between meals. Makes for a pleasant pause in a busy day. Oh, and remember, Coke is low in calories, too. Say, now, don't you get any thinner.
dumb enough to buy a new car this weekend.
You're a big enough schmuck to come to Big Bill Hell's Cars.
Bad deal.
Cars that break down.
Thieves.
If you think you're gonna find a bargain at Big Bill,
You can kiss my ass.
it's our belief that you're such a stupid motherfucker.
You'll fall for this bullshit.
Guaranteed.
If you find a better deal,
Shove it up your ugly ass.
you heard us right.
Shove it up your ugly ass.
Bring your tray.
Bring your title.
Bring your wife.
We'll fuck her.
That's right, we'll fuck your wife.
Because at Big Bill Hell,
You're fucked 6 ways from Sunday.
take a hike
to Big Bill Hell.
home of challenge pissing.
That's right.
Challenge pissing.
How does it work?
If you can piss 6 feet in the air straight up and not get wet,
You get no down payment.
don't wait.
Don't delay.
Don't fuck with us or we'll rip your nuts off.
Only at Big Bill Hell.
The only dealer that tells you to fuck off.
Hurry up, asshole.
This event ends the minute after you write us a check.
And it better not bounce or you're a dead motherfucker.
Go to hell.
Big Bill Hell's Cars.
Baltimore's filthiest.
And exclusive home of one of the meanest sons of bitches in the state of Maryland.
Guaranteed.
Now, back to our program.
Yeah. And it's gross because the kid was apparently telling my friend that anytime the friends were coming over, the mom was always being sexual, always being inappropriate. Whenever the kids started going to my friend's house to stay over, the mom started lashing out. My friend's gay. This woman, to paint a picture, loves her rainbows, loves her pride, goes to every pride festival here in Eugene, Springfield. Went off on my friend saying that he was the problem, that he was the sodomite and the faggot, and that people like him were keeping people like her down, and that her age of attraction was 13 to 18, and that there was nothing wrong with it, and that there was nothing to be done about it, and that it was perfectly fine. And he got blasted as a faggot and a sodomite.
The same person will probably go around and say that they are accepting and, you know, LGBT pride. Like it's so hypocritical. Do you know how old this woman is?
I've actually met her before. I've tattooed her. Tattooed a Baby Yoda on her. That was fucking gross. But I think she's like 40, 50, but she did some meth and drugs over the years, so she looks a lot older.
Do you think this movement corrupted her, or do you think that she was waiting for an opportunity to be able to display these things?
I think definitely maybe not waiting for an opportunity, but didn't fucking expect an opportunity, and when it came along, jumped on it. And, you know, this kid was apparently telling my friend, like, oh, I should have never got my mom into TikTok. I think this is where it all started. And my friend's just like, nah, this shit's getting to everybody, buddy. It's cool. But, yeah, no. And, you know, the kid's non-binary identifying, and the mom believed that to be trans. So whenever the kid came out as non-binary, the mom was sitting down and making her watch shows like I Am Jazz and all this shit. And it's just like she had no concept there's a difference between non-binary and trans. That was her trans kid. And it's like, no. And yeah, just confusing a child, abusing a child. There was a lot of abuse going on there as well. You know, it's just like, I feel bad for this fucking kid.
Yeah.
It's a fucking mess. And there's a lot of kids having to deal with this right now because their parents are just so into this shit. Yeah. And it's just gotten real hostile, you know, like, or not hostile, just parasitic. It's very parasitic, and it just waits for opportunity to strike. Yeah. It's just gotten so fucking gross, and my heart hurts for these fucking kids. Like, they should not be subjected to this.
Is the kid that you were talking about, are they safe now?
They've been staying their friend at my friend's place for about 2 weeks now. Okay. So yeah, and yeah, I think my friend's just waiting for a little more to come in, and if she persists, then take action. But it's fucked up because I know this kid's going to a new school here, and you know, this mom's going on at home like, this fucking faggot, him and da-na-na-na-na. And hearing this at home, and then this kid goes to school, and gets pushed in water puddles and called a fucking faggot there. So where's that kid supposed to go? When you have the psychotic shit at home, you have the homophobia at school, these adults are leaving these kids with nowhere to fucking go. No wonder they're killing themselves. No wonder they're killing others.
I'm so sorry. It's heartbreaking. It definitely is a different perspective, because I feel like I always hear like different sides, like of why a kid identifies as non-binary. Or do you think the reason why this kid identifies as non-binary is, I'm sure it's a different mixture of things, but do you think it has to relate to trauma also?
Trauma, I think, potential sexual abuse, and like I mentioned on Buck Angel, no father. That's one point I made on there, that 95% of the trans non-binary people I know, no father. One or two of them, it was the mother.
Yeah.
But when that father figure is gone, or makes it a point to leave traumatically or to try to return in a traumatic way, like, it fucks with these kids so hard. And there's that having to fill the shoes. And then all the other kids at school, they're filling their shoes because everybody's losing their daddies right now. Everyone's getting divorced. Everyone's fucking dying. So everyone's joining the fucking club.
I feel like conservatives kind of get shitted on so much by wanting a family, by wanting a traditional family. I feel like in a way that like the older generation of liberals, I feel like they want the kids to be traumatized.
I think it's just a lot of people who are traumatized in childhood themselves, or who at the very least shut out childhood themselves. Because like when I think of this, every time I go into these topics, I have to like remember where I was as a kid. And I'm 26, so it wasn't too long ago. But it's still easy to forget sometimes. And you got to remember being a kid and how confusing it was. And like the things I remember from my childhood that I completely forget, that I'm pretty sure I'm going to remember 3 horrible things next year that I can't even contemplate right now. Like, because that's just how the human mind works. So you have to keep reminding yourself. But I think these people just don't remember what it's like to be a kid. You know, they like being big kids. They like their toys and their video games, which same. But like you have to have like the adult level of responsibility with that. If you're going to make statements on other people's lives and family structures and children, then you really need to go back and look at it like, okay, well, what was it like for me? And if it was broken, and if there was problems there, then you need to address that for yourself and stop focusing on these other people and how they're trying to live their lives. Because the way I see it, if half my fucking trans friends or people I know who've experienced gender dysphoria or struggled with it anyhow, if there was a perfect family at home, and there is no perfect family, but if there's a family structure at home, they wouldn't be so distressed. Take the gender side out of it. Fuck gender. They would have just been happier.
This is somebody that's been like talked about a lot, but do you think somebody like Jazz Jennings is kind of like the token for this? Do you think Jazz Jennings was like the start of this?
Definitely one of them. You know, I know there was a mixture. You know, there was a Fox News interview. I think it was with a non-binary veteran back in like the early 2000s. There was stuff being pushed out there for a minute. But I definitely think making a celebrity of the kid in that way definitely amplified things. And, you know, it's obvious at this point we're just supporting a woman's abuse, or this kid's abuse, whatever. You know, we're supporting Jazz's abuse the same way like in the Truman Show, where everybody's kind of just sitting back and they're enjoying their day. Meanwhile, Truman's suffering, feeling like he's in a cage and he can't get anywhere. But all the old ladies at home are snuggled up and they're watching, and the dude's in the bathtub watching the TV, eating his food, not a care in the world. That's what Jazz is in this situation. And as soon as Jazz is able to feel like she can have her voice, whether trans, detrans, whatever, it's clear there's abuse going on. It's clear the mother is fucked. And as soon as she does that, it's going to go all knocking down. I think these TLC kids are going to be the next generation of the Disney and Nickelodeon stars. You know, you have people like Jeanette McCurdy and like these people in Disney and whatnot coming out talking about their conservatorships or their abusive parents or how they were cheated. The TLC generation is coming up next, and it's going to be a million times worse.
Every clip that I watch of Jazz, she claims that she's so happy. It's just kind of like she always has to keep saying that she's happy, she's happy, she's happy for her to believe it. She doesn't even have sexual function because of what the doctors did to her. It's all the mom's fault. The mom has been affirming her since day one, and it's really sad. And there is so many different clips of how unhappy Jazz is, truly. She won't admit that this was a mistake. Like, I feel like the whole world can see it, and we can see it like through her eyes, but she can't speak up about it because her mom is her savior. And it's really sad, and I hate that people actually worship this mother. It's disgusting. They've gotten so much fame and money from it. And Jazz, that's the thing. Jazz was supposed to be happy at the end of this. Like, she's not. She's more distressed. She doesn't have sexual function. And also, the mom is going about talking about her daughter not having any sexual function, saying she's asexual to another adult while her daughter's not even in the room. Granted, at this point, I think Jazz was of age, but it was just like really disturbing that she was just able to comfortably talk to another adult on camera about her child's sexual dysfunction and claiming that she's asexual. No, you put your child on a path of medicalization and you sterilized her. And I just don't understand why she can't even see that.
Well, and this is the thing too. So like, I was watching a documentary the other day called A Dangerous Idea. And there's a black woman in the beginning of it, and she's talking about, growing up under Jim Crow and how she was coerced into sterilization. And there's a moment where they show the documents on the screen, and when she's going in to get sterilized, it shows her signature, and the procedure says asexualization or sterilization, meaning or as in like it being the same thing, just they're synonyms. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, your kid is fucking asexual now. Your kid is sterilized, and this is the language that they used to use. Didn't want to use the word sterilized? Okay, tell them you've been asexualized. Sounds cooler, scientific. People will bat an eye less, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's like she's not wrong. It's just so fucked.
I feel like she isn't wrong, but I feel like it's more of like people can be born being asexual. I feel like that's the point that I wanted to make, is that like there are people that are legitimately born asexual. They have no sex drive, but this was
not that.
Yeah, like this was planned. Like this was her mother's doing. So that's why I don't want to. I agree it is asexual, but I just don't want to compare the two because.
Oh no, and I didn't mean that to compare the two. I just meant like if you look at like eugenics terms, it's like, well, what do you think an asexualization would be on the mother's end? And also like, we watched that girl's botched surgery on camera when they're fucking sitting there and you see the bloody gloves and they're like, why did you cut that?
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's just like, it needs to flap. No, you're not supposed to cut that.
Yeah.
A, why did that happen? B, don't you think that this little girl probably doesn't want to risk the chance of having to see her botched surgery, much less on national television, anywhere in her vicinity?
Yeah.
Like, how many times do you think that kid's been on fucking the internet and seen that pop up?
Yeah.
Just unconscious men and women fighting over her cut open. That would scar the living shit out of anyone.
These kids are just experiments at this point. Like, I watched another, I don't know if you watched Buck Angel's most recent interview, but it was with a trans woman that started her journey around the same time Jazz did.
When she was 13, right?
Yeah, I think so. She's
yeah,
she's the same age as Jazz. She was put on puberty blockers. They did an experimental surgery on her, a bottom surgery that was meant for cisgendered women.
Told her she could become a cisgendered woman.
Yep. And it puts it in such a different perspective. Jazz was like the template, I feel like, for all of this. Jazz is the poster child of all of this. And she's not going to speak up about it anytime soon. It would be powerful, but she's just not ready yet.
And she needs to on her own time if she chooses. Because I think that's another thing too, is like, as much as we want her to speak up, something like that can only come in your own time. And even then, it may not be the outcome that we would want to hear.
Yeah.
Just so long as this kid grows up to be happy in some shape or form, it's like that's all any kid deserves, any of us, you know?
And I hope she finds it. I don't remember her last name, but her first name was Brianna, the other trans woman. Um, I think she even said like up until a month ago, she wasn't even really out as trans. She just wanted to be a woman and she didn't want to face this. She feels like this is her time to come forward and speak up about it, and it is so powerful because we don't have a lot of examples of kids being on long-term puberty blockers and then go on to cross-sex hormones and then get the bottom surgery, and she got breast surgery. I think butt implants too. Like she got the whole workup in 4 years. These doctors fast-tracked her so quickly. Right when she turned 18, they started doing all these procedures. I mean, at least they waited until 18, but they already sterilized her by then. But it's just it's sad because these parents are believing this stuff. There's a bunch of different movements happening and a bunch of key things at play. You get the crazy liberal moms that use their trans or non-binary kid as some sort of token for their own twisted delusion, or you have confused kids and their parents are going by what the doctors say, and they want what's best for their kid, because then the doctors are even throwing out statistics that your kid is going to kill themselves if you don't transition them. But they don't talk about maybe getting the kid therapy. They don't talk about treating the mind. They're all about gender affirmation. I never even said how I reached out to you. I reached out to you through Buck Angel. I commented on Buck Angel's interview to see if you had any social media, because I was completely amazed by the interview. You had such a different perspective and such an open mind, and I guess just a nuanced point of view. And you ended up reaching back out to me, which was I was completely baffled. I was just like, well, like what? Like I joined Gays Against Groomers. I got accepted into Gays Against Groomers. And then I think like a day or two after, I hear that you're trying to reach out to me. And I'm like, oh my God, opportunity. I'm like, oh my God, I get to talk to you. And now I feel like Gays Against Groomers has given me that platform to do so. And I'm so thankful for it, to be able to, I feel like you would have accepted it if I was in Gays Against Groomers or not.
I didn't even realize it at first. Like, even with your videos, I didn't realize you became part of the organization. Like, I was just going through the comments because, like, Buck Angel's community is so fucking positive that, like, whenever I got anxious, I just went back and, like, saw what people were actually saying. And whenever I saw that you wanted to talk to me, I was like, oh my God, because, like, I wanted to talk to more people after that. I felt like being able to come out and, like, get everything off my shoulders in a public setting, it just alleviated so much. But I also left the interview kind of like hungry for more, and I was like, no, there's so much more that needs to be said. And then as soon as I saw that, I was just like, yeah, we got to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And yeah,
no, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, the Gays Against Groomers thing and this opportunity kind of happened simultaneously, and I was just like, oh my God, so many things are happening all at once. But yeah, so we were emailing back and forth for a while, setting this up, and we chatted a little bit before this interview, and we were just talking about, I guess, just there's a lot of similarities between the things that we've gone through. Like, we both have had, I mean, I wasn't in Antifa, but we have both have had such shifts in the way that we go about life and the way our political stances and the things that we believe in now are so completely different. And in our emails, we were talking about just like how the people around us were affected. And you were talking about your husband, I was talking about my boyfriend, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
I kind of walked away from all this in 2020. It's 2023. That means I was with my husband 5 years before all that, and I decided to step away from the ideologies and the belief systems that I held and trying to become this new person. And my husband's the kind of guy who's not really into politics. You know, he has his opinions and his stances, but he likes to take a step back. You know, he likes to live a more relaxed life, and bless him for putting up with me because I lived the complete opposite.
Was he a part of Antifa?
Oh no, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
No. He likes to sit at home. At the time, he liked to drink his beer, play RuneScape, watch movies. Like he's like the most low key guy, complete opposite of me. It levels me out a lot. You know, without him, I don't think I would be able to pull back because realizing what I had to lose, it's like Jesus Christ. But yeah, because the different levels of passion kind of snapping around and becoming a little more right of center and even more conservative on a lot of things, it does kind of leave your partner feeling like, what the hell is going on? Why is it happening so quickly? Why are you so involved? Why are you so invested in all this? And when you started saying the exact same things I was going through, I sat there and I thought to myself, and I even asked my husband to read the email, and we're both kind of sitting there talking like, how many people are going through this right now? Because obviously this would be a new thing for a lot of people. A lot of people are either in these relationships still and can't really talk about it, or are having a difficult time, or they're just fucking ending their relationships, which is not something that I'm interested by any stretch of the imagination. I can't imagine you are either. But thankfully for you and I, we have two strong dudes who put up with our crazy and are still here on the other side. And yeah, just kind of, it was just interesting to see that, because I've never seen a video address that. For all the content and hours I've gone through, I've always kind of hoped that someone would hit a topic like that, but it just never seems to pop up.
I feel like there is a turning of the tides right now with people shifting their political perspective and their ideologies, because we see so much radicalism in our face on both sides, and it's a lot, because now you have people that were like extreme liberal, progressive, Antifa, and now we're finally waking up, and then we're seeing the bullshit that's happening. The liberals always say they want, like, they always tell us to educate ourselves, right? Educate ourselves, but guess what we have? And we did not come to the same conclusions as they did. We can never go back to believing with what they believe in, just because half of the stuff that comes out of their mouth is just simply not true. And it's you just can't put that cat back in the bag. And now we're like awake to this whole thing. And a few months back, I would say I was more extreme with my liberal beliefs. I feel like I was conditioned that way. I felt like I wasn't allowed to have any other beliefs just by friends in high school, co-workers of mine, people on the internet. I grew up in a very conservative household, and then I got shut down every step of the way when I had any ounce of criticism for what the LGBT community was going through. And I was educated and I was shut down, and then I felt like I had to speak up about these things. Like, I even got into an argument with my boyfriend's father about Roe v. Wade being overturned, and my boyfriend was smack in the middle of it, and I was the one going on about how my body, my choice, blah blah blah. It's really embarrassing, because I'm completely a different person, and now my poor boyfriend, he's stuck in the middle. This was in a group chat between me and his father, and my boyfriend's completely silent, justifiably so, because he doesn't know what the fuck is happening. Me and his dad are going at it, and that was like the first like giant like fight that we've ever had, anything that we had to face. Like, it, and I really thought that I was the victim. I really thought I was in the wrong, but here I am sitting here, and I could say that his dad had every right to feel the way that we did. We both didn't act in the best way possible in the slightest, but that's the thing that the liberals will never say, that the right conservatives, they have every right to feel the way that they do, as long as they're not harming anybody. I don't see any harm of having a simple opinion. Probably about a year after that argument, I came across a YouTuber, Blair White, and she was kind of like my introduction to waking up to all of this. I don't even remember exactly how it happened. I've always been kind of like on the liberal side, but then I always wanted to lean more conservative, and it was kind of always ping-ponged back and forth because I wanted to keep my friends. I wanted to keep people happy, and sometimes I really felt like I was really passionate. I really felt like I believed in some certain things. My poor boyfriend, he had to deal with all of this. He had to deal with my stupid argument with his father. And then now he's coming over, visiting me, and I have Blair White on, I have Buck Angel on, I have Amala Epinobi, and I'm showing him all these videos, and I'm like, look at this person, like they mutilated their chest, like they're just like a teenage girl, and they felt like they had to do that, and I got so passionate about it. I'm still very passionate about it, but I feel like for a while he didn't really have a fight in this battle. He didn't feel like he had a reason to have a fight in this battle, and he has every right to not see the same things that I do, or he has every right to not be as passionate about these things. But I feel like we've come to a point where we see a little bit more eye to eye. I have simmered down a lot, but he knows that this is something I feel like I had to prove to him that this was something that I'm going to stick with and be passionate about, because he's known me to being very just, I don't know. I feel like for a while he didn't even know what I believed in, because I was so confused mentally by what I was raised with and by what people tried to condition me to believe in. And then now he's seen that I have really dedicated my time to this, and now I'm in Gays Against Groomers, and he even went with me to a Gays Against Groomers the New York launch party, and then that's when he really saw why I was fighting for what I was fighting for, because a straight dude like him, he just sees the LGBT community. That's it. But then when we were in the event, he saw the two sides. He saw the people inside the venue that were nice, welcoming, warm, inviting. And then he sees the other people on the outside screaming to punch us because we were transphobic and we were TERFs and we were anti-LGBT, and there was even a fight outside and two people got arrested. It's crazy, and that was when it really clicked for him. He really noticed this, and he realized why I was fighting for what I'm fighting for, because there is that difference. There is the side of actual groomers and predators, and then there's the side of normal, rational human beings that just want to love who they love, and then they just want to leave the kids alone.
And I can sympathize all with that 100%. And God bless our boyfriend's husband for putting up with us, because that's not easy. And a lot of the times I feel like my life is this episode of Family Guy. There's an episode where Brian discovers Rush Limbaugh, and he just becomes a conservative overnight, and he's just completely like on board, down to the point where he's screaming about waterboarding Nancy Pelosi. And by the end of it, they have to like shake hands, and he realizes he's a liberal and Rush Limbaugh's a conservative. But sometimes I think of that, and I just imagine that's the lens that people kind of see me through, because it is such a turnaround. Because when you are passionate and you are vocal, and then the messaging starts changing, it's like when I think of my husband thinking about it, sometimes I think earlier on, maybe it was like you said, what does he believe in? Does he believe in anything? Why is it shifting so hard? Why did you hate Christians one moment and then you're completely pro-Christian? Why were you all for this and now you're all against it? On so many different fronts. Like I can't even count them on my fingers. I feel like it's hundreds at this point. And it's just like, yeah, it's brought us to some really hard times over the past few years, and I feel like we're finally starting to get in a place where we're communicating with it better, we're working through. I have a lot that I have to work on. It's like I don't know, because it's like such a necessary change, right? Like it's things that you have to wake up and see. You know, you and I feel the purpose, and they don't need to feel a purpose to fight for anything. They need to live their lives and do as they will. But then, at least in my head, there's like this expectation, like, oh, but you're my partner, so we have to be on board with this 100%, or we have to think alike like this. And then I got to remind myself, no, 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 that's what you were doing over there. Now you can't just go start doing the same shit over here. Like you gotta back off a little bit. And kind of like you're saying, I'm feeling like maybe even still I'm having to earn that trust from being flaky on so many projects, from not seeing so many things through life, through being a fuck up, through all these things. But over time, it's like you can't stop the truth. You can only work on yourself. You can only keep doing what you're doing and pray for the best that the people in your life are going to stick with you. And like I said, in your and I's case, like we're really, really, really lucky, because I know a lot of people did not make it out of that with their partners or their significant others, and that's fucked up to think about, because I admittedly we've gotten close a couple of times, and that's never ever ever a fun moment.
Yeah.
And stupid shit like this shouldn't destroy relationships. They should enhance them. So I
Yeah.
think that's what we all got to learn to do if we're in that situation.
I feel like we are very lucky just because like they weren't like a part of any sort of fight. I cannot imagine what it must be like if like let's say your husband was involved with you in all of the Antifa movements and everything. Do you think your life would look so much different if you had that shift and he didn't, and he went harder in Antifa and you went harder at being more conservative?
Yeah, cause like from him, he's just a spectator. He's just hearing like, "Oh, my friends are Antifa or liberal, so whatever, do your thing." But yeah, it's like if if he went in the opposite direction and became fully combative, that would be hard. And I think in some of those hard moments, my brain will construct it that way, right? Because being put into that type of environment, like going out in the streets or getting involved in politics like I do, I'm naturally combative in that sense. So it's like sometimes it feels like there's something more going on than there is, when really it's just me getting a little too uppity.
I kind of feel like your husband and my boyfriend kind of being the personality types they were, they kind of gave us the space to be able to kind of be our own thinkers. I feel like it would be completely different if I was in a relationship with somebody who was a radical, progressive liberal, and it would also be harder to get out of that echo chamber, because I feel like that's a big issue that's happening right now, is that these couples, I see these couples all the time. Like I saw that these two girls that were dating each other, girls, they identify as non-binary, and they both have had like their top surgeries done, and it's such a sight to see. Like it's horrible, and like I feel like in a relationship like that, like I I can't even think about either one of them like getting out of their way of thinking. And like I don't even know how that would even look like. Like I'm thankful to be in the position that I am in, because I don't even know if I would be able to get out of that sort of way of thinking.
It's so hard. Like I feel like people can look on from the outside and just be like, this is just silly shit. Why don't these people get their fucking shit together? Why don't these kids figure it out? But when you're so when you're so entrenched in these ideologies, and like I kind of make the point this in the Buck Angel podcast, but a lot of our generation isn't religious anymore. So they're just substituting for it however they can. And a lot of that is ideology. And that's going to come with daily, weekly practice. It's going to come with traditions. It's going to come with sacrament. It's going to come with martyrs and messiahs. And in the same way that if you're a Catholic or a Baptist or a Mormon or Jewish, no matter what you believe, you know what it's like to live in the world of God, or the world of Allah, or the world of whoever, and that determines your reality. Now corporations and government and social media are dictating that reality, and it's becoming those sacraments. And Yeah, it's brainwashing.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of brainwashing. It's like they had to get rid of religion in order to replace it and snag it just in that time. And now everyone's just hypnotized in their bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like convenient timing.
I feel like I can hear Buck Angel right now through me and just saying, wow, that was powerful, that what you just said. I fucking love Buck so much.
I love him. That was the greatest day ever. Spending 9/11 with Buck Angel. I was so sad we didn't talk about 9/11, but I get it. He's a busy man. We only had so much time. But holy shit. Good fucking person. Good soul. Doing a lot of good. And, I think inspiring people like you and me to want to try and step up and do the same, even though we're not as big and powerful. Like, you and I wouldn't be able to sit here and do this without people like Buck or Blair or Ariel or Marcus or any of them. So, yeah, shout out to you guys. You guys rock.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I would still be thinking the same way that I did if none of them existed. Like, they are doing like actual good work. I didn't know who any of these people were a couple months ago. I was living a completely different life a couple months ago. And it has been such a joy to talk to you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I never imagined that you would actually reach out to me on YouTube, and just thank you. This was awesome, and we're gonna change lives here.
Hell yeah. No, thank you for the chance to speak with you. I'm really glad that I don't know, it's just nice to see someone in the comments being like, I want to talk to this guy. Like it's getting me pumped up. I'm going to be putting out some podcast plans here pretty soon. I really want to get some stuff of my own going, go into some LGBT issues, go into some military stuff, go into some protest stuff, alien psychedelics. I want to go through all of it. I have a blast with this type of shit. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah.
Do you have any advice for parents or even minors that might be going through like a gender identity crisis themselves?
To the minors, I would say try to look up to the people like Buck Angel, look up to elders, people who were in this before the 2000s. For parents, I think it's important find that middle gap between like you and your kids. If you have like anyone in your family that's like in their 20s or something like that, more relatable, who are like-minded on these politics and can be a mediator, because the generational differences can cause a lot of chaos in that regard. Get your family members involved because this is your kid's life. And as far as like I've had to reach out to people and get help on my own, because like I can sit here and like look up this shit all fucking day, but at the end of the day, there's people who really have made it their life mission, really gone out and put out some good shit. So I would say people like Stephanie Wynn, Benjamin Voice with Conversations is a great channel for some really good peaceful dialogue. If your kid's going through any of this, Jamie Reed was a gender clinic whistleblower who's gone on places like trigonometry and whatnot, and she breaks down how things were operating in the clinic and why she came forward. Statsforgender.org has been a really, quite frankly, fun website where you can get a lot of information, crazy things that I didn't know, scientific studies that really just break it down for anybody trying to get any information on it. And yeah, just rabbit hole those freaking voices, because they're hosting so many different people with so many different perspectives. Like, get educated on it, because it's very, very dicey. And the United States government has chosen to not slow down with this. Switzerland was the first country to recognize trans people, like, legally. And they were also the first one to pull out of this shit. And we're choosing not to do that. And that's going to cause a lot of damage. And you got to get the family involved, I think.
That's great advice. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for everything. Thank you for what you stand for. I feel like you're really, you're gonna wake a lot of people up. If an Antifa member can be woken up to the bullshit that's happening, there is hope. I finally feel hope. After watching Buck Angel's interview, I realized I was just like, wow, I actually have some form of hope. It's incredible. And just thank you for having the courage. I know that it's not easy to talk about these things. And I know on the Buck Angel interview, you dived more into your experiences with Antifa and just everything that you went through with just like the riots and the police. And I just wanted to say, I'm so sorry that you had to go through all of that. And it was a lot. And yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you for speaking up, because I know it's definitely not easy. And if anybody is interested, they should really watch the interview with Buck Angel, because there was so many more topics that you guys got into that we didn't get into here, and it was an incredible interview. And just thank you. You're an incredible dude, and thank you. And we will definitely be talking a lot more. And I think
absolutely.
I think I made a new friend.
100%. Glad to have made a new friend, and thank you again for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it.
Had his theory, and he didn't have any way of proving it, because, I mean, how do you prove something like that? Until this family showed up at his doorstep, and it was a Canadian family from Winnipeg, I think, right?
I think that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah. And they were the Reamer family, a blue-collar, very young couple, 20, 21 years old. And they had a horrific tragedy in their family, which is that they gave birth to twin boys. The boys were fine. And when the boys were, well, actually they had phimosis. Phimosis is a abnormality of the opening of the urethra. And so the doctors recommended circumcision for the boys. And they went in when they were 8 months old for circumcision. And the first boy to go in for the circumcision was Bruce. And the equipment, there was a malfunction of the equipment. And they were cauterizing the penis in order to circumcise it. And instead of just that small amount of tissue that was supposed to be cauterized, apparently the settings were incorrect, and the entire penis was burnt. So Bruce's penis was burnt, beyond any functionality. So these poor parents went home. The other boy was not circumcised, just obviously. They went home, and what are they supposed to do? They have a boy without a penis. What the hell are they supposed to do? So months later, they were watching television, and John Money happened to be on there. And you have to know also that John Money was an extremely pompous, self-assured individual. He was sophisticated. When he talked, you listened. He came across as being definitive, being, calling the shots, knowing what was going on, knowing the research, knowing the truth. And he in this interview on television, said that a boy can be raised as a girl and a girl can be raised as a boy if it's done early enough. And that early enough means before the age of 2.5 or 3. And the parents, the Reamer parents, immediately took note of that, and they thought, here's the answer. This is the answer for Bruce. This is what we're supposed to do. So they contacted Dr. Money down in Baltimore, and they made an appointment and took the twins down to Baltimore and went down there. Again, you have to understand that this was a uneducated, young, blue-collar family. And when they were interviewed later about their meetings with John Money, they described him as like, we just thought he was God. Mm-hmm. We just thought, he's a professor and he's, got all the diplomas and he's the head of this entire
New
clinic. At an outstanding university, one of the major universities in the world.
That was at Johns Hopkins, right?
Yes,
yeah, right.
Yes. So you have to imagine this young couple coming and they're at a loss and they are looking for an answer. They've been praying, they're looking for an answer to their prayers. What are we going to do with Bruce? And John Money says, well, we have an answer for you. Because male and female is actually not related to chromosomes. It's not related to hormones. It's not innate. We can take little Bruce and we have to do some surgery on Bruce. We have to castrate him and we'll remove his testicles. He already didn't have a penis. We're going to remove his testicles. We're going to fashion, some sort of elementary sort of female genitalia. You're going to give him a girl's name and you're going to put him in pink dresses and give him dolls and raise him as a girl. And you are never, ever, Dr. Money told the parents, never to tell him that this was truly what happened and after he was born. Never tell him, because that will ruin everything. And it's up to you. You have to just work your hardest to raise him as a girl and make sure that everyone around him is considering him a girl, because essentially he is a girl. And so not only was this the answer to the Reamers' prayers, this was, as you can understand now, the answer to Dr. Money's prayers.
Right. He had an experiment.
This was the experiment. This was his proof of concept. His concept was that being male and female is completely separate from biology. It's imposed by society. It's a social construct. And this was his proof of concept. And so the Reamers went home. Well, he had his surgery. They took him home. They named Bruce Brenda. They put him in all the girls' clothing and they gave him dolls and they did all the things. And he peed sitting down sometimes, because as we'll learn later, he actually preferred urinating standing up, which is astonishing. We learned later that he always wanted to urinate standing up. And from the time he was in diapers, I think, he was told he was a girl. So that really is fascinating. But anyway, so they took him home, raised him as a girl, and Dr. Money started to follow the twins. Every year they would come down for a visit. The parents would spend time speaking to Dr. Money, and then the money, here's a slip.
Freudian slip for you.
Yeah. Dr. Money would take the twins without the parents into his office and spend time with the twins. So this went on for years. And Dr. Money began to report on his study that became a famous landmark study. And he called her Joan in his study. He was beginning to write about this and lecture. And he was claiming that Joan, AKA Brenda, AKA Bruce, was doing great. She was adjusting. She may be a bit of a tomboy. He would acknowledge that. But in every way, she was adjusting and she was doing well with friends and with schools. And she liked playing with dolls and she would mimic her mom. And he was giving this glowing report from year to year. And in his professional writing of his studies, his report, and he was giving talks. And he was getting, you might imagine, tremendous attention for this. I mean, you have to understand, this was by now maybe, the early 60s. This is feminism, okay? This is the sexual revolution. This is a time when society, or at least part of society, wanted nothing more to say that male and female is a social construct. And that in order to gain, full equality, women have to be considered the same as men. And, to have a study such as this study of John Money's, in which he was reporting that this baby who was XY, normal chromosomes, normal everything biologically, but is being successfully raised as a girl because he has a girl's name and girls and dresses and dolls and all, his entire society, his teachers and his grandparents and everyone is reinforcing the idea that he's a delicate girl who likes to cook and, is going to grow up to have babies. I mean, this was huge. Now, what happened is that this theory of John Money's was accepted over the decades. We didn't find out what really happened with the twins until decades later. And in the meantime, during those decades, his theory became doctrine. Okay, his theory became just baked into, so many fields of both soft and hard science, so that it was standard that whenever you had, for example, an XY or any child that had ambiguous genitalia, if they could be raised as a girl, they'd be raised as a girl. So they'd be castrated just automatically. Why? Because of the great success, because of what John Money proved to us. And so lots and lots of boys all over the world. I mean, this was written into the textbooks of endocrinology and the textbooks of genetics. I mean, this became truth, so to speak. Not that there weren't people, other scientists that were standing up and saying, John, this isn't proven yet. Let's look a little closer. This is not necessarily the case. But what did he do? He wouldn't tolerate that. John Money, was a tyrant. He would not tolerate another psychologist or biologist or geneticist standing up and trying to publish something that would challenge his great gender theory. He would arrange, he would intimidate the editors at the scientific journals to not publish those articles. It's a lot of what's actually going on right now is very similar.
Right.
So,
right.
So what happened with the twins is that after decades, in fact, John Money wrote a book in 1997 in which he said yet again that his twin study, that his gender theory had been confirmed and supported by the results of this experiment with the twins. And the following...
One person experiment, by the way, a one person experiment.
Yeah, but even that one person, it didn't work. Okay, so in 1998, what do we call him now? Not Brenda, not Bruce, but what happened is that we discovered that he stood up and he said, he just blew the cover of this whole thing was a hoax. And his name was now David. Brenda had become David. And he was not only a man, but he was married to a woman and he had adopted 3 stepchildren, and he worked as a janitor in a slaughterhouse.
Right.
So that was David Reamer, and people can go onto YouTube and hear him being interviewed about his experience of what it was like to be told for 14 years of his life that he's a girl, and to never, ever, ever feel that was his truth. What happened is that during all those years, he was not happy with his dresses and with his dolls. He wanted to go play with his brother's toys. He wanted to pee standing up. He wanted to, he was rough. He was so boyish and aggressive that kids called him cave woman. Okay, they made fun of him because the way that he walked and his gestures and his interests were all so masculine. And he was a miserable child, and the family was miserable. And on top of everything, when the family was going back for those yearly visits to Johns Hopkins with Dr. Money was sexually abusing those twins.
Okay, how?
He was forcing them to undress and to mimic sexual intercourse, and he would say, this is what men and women do together, and he would, humiliate them and show them pictures. And the point came, why did they stop going down to Johns Hopkins? The boys refused to go. They refused to go back to see Dr. Money, and the parents couldn't understand why.
What happened to David Reimer? What happened? David Reimer committed suicide eventually, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the denouement of that particularly tragic case.
And his twin.
So not only was this a failure, it was go ahead.
Oh no, it was a disaster, terrible disaster. He committed suicide, and his twin brother died of an opiate overdose before him. His twin died first. The entire family was, what kind of words? Traumatized. It's not enough. Trauma is not enough to describe what that family went through.
My parents didn't know a lot that was going on. And if they would have known, it never would have happened. By me not saying anything, the medical community was under the impression that my case was a success story. And I was shocked when I heard that people thought that my case was a success story.
So what we should point out here is that this experiment couldn't possibly have gone more cataclysmically wrong than it did. Right? Not only was what Money was saying was not true in the technical scientific sense, it was an anti-truth, and he falsified the data, and it culminated in the death of 2 people, the demolition of a family, and the perversion of an entire culture. That's John Money's legacy. And
he never publicly acknowledged it. He never publicly acknowledged that the twins had, that one of the, I don't know what John Money died, I think, in 2006, and I think he had dementia. But when the book came out, and when John Colapinto's book came out that just exposed this whole calamity, there was nothing from John Money. He was still alive. He could have made a statement. Nothing. I'm just saying that that's just another, indication of what the immorality of this person, and the lack of acknowledgement, of what they're guilty of doing. I guess it's too much to expect.
Hello, I'm your host Noah Berlatsky, and welcome to another edition of Prostasia Conversations. This month we're talking to Alan Walker. Alan is an assistant professor at Old Dominion University in the Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice. They earned their master's in social work at Columbia University and their PhD in criminal justice at John Jay College and their graduate center in the City University of New York. Their research focuses on institutional harms, especially those created by our criminal processing, immigration, detention, and mental health care systems. So, and specifically, we're talking about Alan's book, A Long Dark Shadow, Minor Attracted Persons and Their Pursuit of Dignity. So the book is a study of non-offending minor attracted persons, a group that hasn't been discussed a lot either in the academy or in popular culture. So it's a difficult and important subject, and we're thrilled to have Alan with us today to talk about it. Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much.
So my first question was, even the title of your book is pretty controversial, right? Because the subtitle is Minor Attracted Persons and Their Pursuit of Dignity. And many people are concerned that the designation of minor attracted persons, or MAPS, suggests that it's okay to be attracted to children, or they're worried that the term suggests that pedophilia is a sexual orientation, which they worry is a slander on LGBT people. So could you talk about why you used that term in the title and throughout the book?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that question. I use the term minor attracted person, or MAP, in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile. A lot of people, when they hear the term pedophile, they automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors. I've definitely heard the idea that you brought up, though, that the use of the term minor attracted person suggests that it's okay to be attracted to children. But using a term that communicates who someone is attracted to doesn't indicate anything about the morality of that attraction. From my perspective, there is no morality or immorality attached to attraction to anyone because no one can control who they're attracted to at all. In other words, it's not who we're attracted to that's either okay or not okay. It's our behaviors in responding to that attraction that are either okay or not okay. And I want to be extremely clear that child sexual abuse is never, ever okay. But having an attraction to minors, as long as it isn't acted on, doesn't mean that the person who has those attractions is doing something wrong. I think we have a tendency to want to categorize people with these attractions as evil or morally corrupt. But when we're talking about non-offending MAPs, these are people who have an attraction that they didn't ask for, and one that is frequently they would give anything to change, but they find that they're unable to change those attractions. And most importantly, the people in my study did not act on them. Something else you brought up was the idea that using the term MAP could suggest that attractions to minors are a type of sexual orientation. Whether or not attractions to minors are a type of sexual orientation is not a question that can be answered with my particular research. My research touched upon the labels that MAPs use to describe themselves, though, and a lot of them have been really conscious about their choice of language because they don't want to slander, as you put it, lesbian, gay, and bisexual people. So they'll use language to kind of distance themselves from LGBT folks, which I talk about more in my book and in other articles that I've written. There's a lot that could be said about whether attractions to minors are in themselves a sexual orientation, and there's research that I cite in my book about that. But to me, that misses a larger and more important difference, which again is about attraction versus behavior. If we did consider MAPs to have their own distinct type of sexual orientation, there would still be a huge difference between MAPs and lesbian, gay, and bisexual people. And that difference is that MAPs have a sexual attraction that would result in a lot of harm if they acted on it. Whereas for LGBT folks, there's no harm in having consensual relationships with one another. So that's where the distinction lies. Again, it's really in that difference between attraction and behavior. And non-offending MAPs, by definition, do not abuse children, so their behaviors are moral. But they're still being subjected to this same idea that they're bad people, and they've often internalized that for themselves. So that's why I've used this subtitle, Minor Attracted People and Their Pursuit of Dignity, because a lot of the people I interviewed for the book have encountered people who have told them that they're bad people or monsters just because of their attractions, or they feel that same way about themselves. And it's often a process for them to just stop feeling internally like they're monsters. Some of the people in my study have been going through this process for years, decades even, and some of them had just started it, maybe even just weeks before we spoke. Seeing my participants be so affected by the stigma against them was really hard because they were trying their best to be good people. So it was important for me to use language that was as non-stigmatizing for them as possible.
There's kind of a lot to pick up there, but I guess the one thing I wondered if you could talk about a little more, just to start, is you know that the term pedophile is often used. I mean, people use it to mean people who are attracted to minors, but they also kind of use it to just mean people who abuse children. And I guess you sort of say that there's sort of a difference there. Could you talk about like what the difference is and like why it's important?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is such an important topic to bring up, so thank you for that. It's funny because when I give talks and mention that pedophile doesn't mean someone who has committed a sexual offense and is instead referring to attraction, I still see phones come out because people will be Googling to see if I'm correct in my language choice or not. But yes, there's a big difference between MAPs and child sexual abusers. Pedophilia is a clinical term that indicates a sexual attraction to people who have not gone through puberty. MAP refers to someone who has preferential attractions to minors, and that can include children who have gone through puberty or not. And then child sexual abusers are people who have committed a sexual offense against a child. Many of these people are indeed MAPs. But first of all, there are many people who commit sexual offenses against a minor who are not attracted to children in general. We know that abusers commonly commit sexual offenses for reasons related to power, control, and access, not because of attraction. So many child sexual abusers are not MAPs. And then just as importantly, many MAPs never commit a sexual offense against a minor. That difference is important because when we don't understand that distinction, we make incorrect assumptions about the likelihood of offending amongst MAPs. This leads to people believing that just because someone is attracted to minors, they're likely to commit an offense. And we start to criminalize a population just because of their attractions. Not only is this a problem in terms of criminalization, but it also serves to heighten stigma against MAPs in general, which is a huge problem.
It was also, I mean, does it make it harder to sort of like identify child sexual abuse in general if you're sort of focused on this one population who isn't necessarily always the ones doing?
Yeah, absolutely. If we have this idea that child sexual abusers look a certain way, are a certain way, we're going to be missing the majority of offenses that are committed because we're so focused on this one idea.
So that in the book you say that your initial work was with victims of sexual violence, and I think a lot of people sort of find it odd that that a person would go from there to sort of researching minor attracted people, especially in sort of such a sympathetic way. So I guess like what led you to this project and to trying. And I guess how do you reconcile that with sort of like trying to be empathetic or work with victims of sexual violence?
Yeah, so I had worked with victims of sexual abuse as a counselor, which is one of my very first jobs as a social worker. It was both heartbreaking and infuriating to hear about people's experiences with sexual victimization in that capacity. And all I really wanted to do was protect them from the pain that they were experiencing, which I couldn't do. And when I was trying to help them access help through the criminal legal system, it was frustrating that the system wasn't helping the victims. And that was most of the time. Most of the time it wasn't helping them, not in the way they needed. So I started further noticing the ways in which the criminal processing system really contributes to harm when I ended up facilitating a support group with women who were incarcerated and who had been victims of sexual violence. At that point, I started having my eyes opened to institutional harms that were caused by the criminal processing system as a whole, to those who are criminalized and to those who are victimized alike. As I started learning more about the system, I learned more and more about alternatives to the way we currently deal with people who commit offenses. And a big part of that is in offense prevention. I actually worked for many years for an organization that developed alternatives to incarceration through violence intervention, restorative justice initiatives, alternative court programs, and so on. But I never heard about any initiatives that attempted to prevent sexual offending against minors. Actually, through engaging in this work, I never even understood that people with attractions to minors and people who commit offenses against them are entirely distinct groups. And I actually remember learning about that from a news article while I was browsing online, and it totally shifted my understandings about sexual offending. I became really interested in researching MAPS from the perspective of preventing sexual offending against children. And I began attending workshops led by Before You Act, the advocacy group I was discussing earlier, as I developed my research about MAPS. My research study ended up including interviews with 42 minor attracted people. And in those interviews, I asked participants about their experiences with coming to terms with their identity and coping with the stigma that they faced, as well as about how they've strategized not to commit offenses. My purposes for asking about their strategies for non-offending are probably obvious, as I'm interested in offense prevention, and I figured MAPS' personal strategies would have relevance to other MAPS who might be struggling with some kind of temptation to act on their attractions. But my reasons for asking about my participants' understandings about their identity and their experiences informing it might not be quite so obvious. Initially, I saw those questions as something that would just give context to how they strategize not to offend, so pretty much as background information. But as I attended workshops and met MAPS in person and through interviews, I heard about these experiences and how scared MAPS often were when they realized that they had this attraction that's pretty universally maligned. Although I'm not a MAP myself, I'm queer, and so I too have been through experiences in realizing that I have attractions many people wouldn't understand, and that some people find to be immoral. And those experiences have really shaped who I've become. And so I sort of empathized with those experiences, and I wanted to learn more.
So you're sort of talking about sort of stigma against MAPS to some degree here, and sort of empathizing with their experiences of stigma. And I mean, when I think a lot of people think that people should be stigmatized, right? That if you have that if you're attracted, that attractions to minors should be very strongly stigmatized in order to prevent people from thinking that they're okay or from acting on them. And that I mean, in your book, though, you seem to be arguing for less stigma. So could you talk about what's wrong with using stigma to sort of prevent sexual violence in this way, and why would you rather see stigma reduced?
Yeah, absolutely. I do talk a lot about stigma. I think we believe societally that stigma against MAPS serves to protect children because somehow we don't fully understand the differences between MAPS and sex offenders. Again, we have this confusion between the attraction and a criminal behavior, which I stress so much is just a huge problem. Stigma against MAPS is a problem in part because it makes MAPS think that they're monsters. That's really problematic in terms of MAP well-being. It's really hard to cope when you think you're a terrible person because you have attractions that you can't change. But it's also hugely problematic because when MAPS get the impression that they're destined to commit an offense against a child, they might not realize that it's a choice that they have and that there's help out there if they feel some kind of temptation to commit an offense. Not only is this a problem because it affects how MAPs understand themselves, but in the event that a MAP does decide to reach out for help, their stigma has huge consequences for the kind of help that's available to them. For instance, if a MAP sought out one-on-one therapy with a counselor, they might not know whether the counselor fully understands the difference between someone who has an attraction to minors and someone who has committed an offense against a child. Because of that stigma, counselors are just like anyone else. They might know that, they might not. If they end up in therapy with a counselor who mistakenly believes all MAPs have committed an offense or will do so at some point, their therapist might end up making a report against them that they shouldn't be making. Unfortunately, some MAPs have had that exact type of experience, which discourages others from help seeking, even when they might really need that help as a non-offending strategy. So the stigma that we have against MAPs throughout society can not only affect well-being, but it can actually lead to harm against children.
I guess this is a sort of related question, but I mean, your book talks a lot about sort of the depression and isolation which many MAPs feel because of stigma, and because they're considered, they're basically considered to be sexual abusers. And I think many people are sort of like uneasy with the idea that you should really empathize with them. I mean, even if you think stigma should be reduced, the idea that you should really be thinking about them as victims themselves in some ways. People are concerned that takes you're no longer centering victims of sexual abuse themselves, and that can lead to I guess pushing for policies that might harm child sexual abusers or that might make it easier to offend. So, I mean, like, is that something you're concerned about, or sort of why does sort of like a more empathetic approach to MAPs seem like the way to go to you?
Yeah, it's not at all uncommon to have these questions. Some of the feedback I've gotten about my book and my work in general is that empathizing with MAPs somehow, quote unquote, encourages them. But the reason that MAPs deal with depression and isolation is due to the stigma that I've been talking about. And that stigma itself can lead to harm for MAPs and children alike. Sometimes I hear from people who think that MAPs need to work on getting rid of their attractions for themselves altogether. And on one hand, just because someone has attractions to children doesn't mean that they won't ever experience attraction to adults as well, or even that their attractions to children will persist for their entire lives. Sexuality can be fluid, and there are many MAPs who have a range of attractions to both children and adults, and sometimes those attractions can fluctuate just like any other attractions. On the other hand, we also know that such methods as conversion therapy are not at all effective. And yet that tends to be what people think of when they believe that MAPs should be trying to get rid of their attractions. That they should go to some kind of therapeutic intervention where they can be converted. But that's not really an option. So what is an option? Getting those MAPs who want it into some kind of affirming therapy where their provider understands that their attractions don't make them a threat, and who can help them navigate strategies for non-offending if it turns out that they need those. That kind of work does focus on preventing child sexual abuse, and that kind of help is not available as widely as it should be. So we need to focus on making it more widely available. At the same time, in answer to your question about focusing on potential victims of child sexual abuse, absolutely we should be focusing on that. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't aim to have prevention strategies that focus on MAPs who are at risk of offending as well. Too often our child abuse prevention strategies focus on teaching children about stranger danger, which is ineffective because most children who experience abuse are abused by someone that they know. We also have child abuse prevention strategies that focus on teaching children to say no to adults, which is good for children to learn about, but places the burden of prevention on the child rather than on individuals who might be at risk of offending. By lowering stigma against attraction to minors, we can more effectively focus on getting help to people who are at risk of committing an offense.
So one thing I wanted to ask you is, your book is about MAPs who specifically don't offend or have not committed child sexual abuse. And one of the things you talk about is you ask them why they haven't offended. And so what's their answer? Why do most of these people, why have they not acted on their these attractions, or why haven't they harmed children?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and one that I had a lot of assumptions about as I went into my research. I was getting my PhD in criminal justice at the time, and I had the belief that the MAPs in my study weren't offending because they were afraid of being put in prison. But what I found out from talking to MAPs was that the reason they weren't offending is because they would never want to harm a child. Many of them talked to me about experiencing love for children and understanding inherently that if they committed an offense against a child, it would be deeply hurtful. For most of my participants, that was enough to keep them from ever even considering acting out on their attractions. I ended up feeling pretty embarrassed that I hadn't understood that from the start, because at this point it just seemed so obvious. My participants generally felt that hurting a child would be the worst thing they could possibly do, and they wanted to be good people.
So I also wondered, I guess I'm curious, have you done research with MAPs who have offended, or is that not a population who you've looked into at all? Or
that's not been a population that I've specifically looked into. There's a lot of literature out there on offending, and so I really wanted to focus on this topic that is, at least at the time I began my research, a lot less explored, which is the population of MAPs who do not commit an offense.
So what strategies do they have for not committing offenses?
Yeah, there are a bunch. A big one was reaching out to a therapist, and that's the one that I focused on in terms of discussing this big problem with stigma, and that I've already kind of talked about, especially when therapists aren't available or have these kind of stigmatizing opinions about MAPs. Another one is that they can reach out to family or friends, especially if they're going to be in the presence of a child. They might have someone that they know will be around, who can, just be present. And that way they know that they're not going to act out. Another huge one is just limiting their interaction with minors overall. So they'll, not be in spaces with minors, especially one-on-one again. But they might not be in spaces with minors in general. They might just, if they know that there are going to be kids there, they won't go. Some of them took this to a really big extreme where they wouldn't go into public as much as they otherwise necessarily might have. But others just, if there was a gathering that they thought there would probably be a lot of children at, or children in general, they would just excuse themselves from that event, knowing that that wasn't a good space for them to be in. Others were seeking out support from other MAPs. So especially connecting on groups like Before You Act and VERPED, or Virtuous Pedophiles. These are support groups that can allow MAPs to contact one another and talk about, first of all, if they're experiencing any coping issues in general, but also if they're feeling like they're going to offend. There are folks who, reach out and can help them, with reasons that they shouldn't offend, with their own strategies for non-offending, with therapists who they have had good luck with in the past, and a number of other resources. So that support there was really beneficial for them. And something that should be talked about as well, that I haven't mentioned yet, is that so many of the people I talked to really said they didn't have any strategies because they just knew that they weren't a risk. So they, some of my participants did talk about this kind of temptation that they had, or urges, but the majority said that they never experienced kind of urges to commit a sexual offense. It wasn't like this daily struggle that they were trying to keep away from children. It was just like in the back of their mind, they knew they had this attraction, and they also knew they weren't going to act on it. So there's that really big difference there between the folks who felt like they needed these strategies and folks who felt like they never really needed one. Even some of the folks who never felt they needed one, though, still had these ideas about, well, I mean, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to go hang around with a lot of children, given my attractions. So they weren't necessarily framing their strategies in terms of how do I not commit an offense, but they might frame them in terms of, like, what is the most appropriate thing for me to do, considering that I do have these attractions. And they would kind of draw that line as well.
So I guess my last question was, I just kind of wondered, have you experienced a lot of pushback to your book, like in the Academy or from the public? I mean, I know that these issues are super controversial, and I just kind of wondered, has your book been mostly sort of like accepted, or are people skeptical?
Oh, sorry, what was the last part?
Oh, are people skeptical, or,
Gotcha. So I've had a little bit of pushback here and there. It's a risky topic to research in terms of what the public thinks about maps, and even in terms of what other people in my field think. Usually in terms of other researchers, they'll just say that the topic of my research is something that they don't want to think about, and we won't discuss it. Or they won't understand it at all, even if we're like in conversation about it. So I remember a professor of mine asking about my research. And when I said I was studying people who are attracted to children who don't commit offenses, he said, oh, okay, so sex offenders. And I clarified, no, they have attractions to minors, but they haven't committed an act of sexual abuse. And he said, right, sex offenders. He just could completely not comprehend the population that I was talking about. I had another professor who, when I brought up my research interests, she just said yuck and moved along. So there's been some pushback here and there. I've also received some feedback from the general public saying that, my book encourages maps, or that it will lead to further offending. But generally, that feedback seems like it's coming from people who haven't read my book, and are instead just reacting to what they think the book is about without taking the time to read it first. And then some of the negative reactions I've heard also attack me based on my gender identity. My identity is a trans person. So those reactions have been hurtful just because it always sucks to read hate against trans people. But generally, people seem pretty receptive to my book. I've heard some really great feedback from people who study criminology and think the subject of this book is important toward preventing sexual abuse against children. I've also had a lot of conversations with people who go into social work and are just like me before I had understood the difference between MAPS and sex offenders. So they've just started understanding this and they want to learn more. And I always feel really grateful to those who find this to be an uncomfortable subject and who are still willing to learn more about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We've been talking to Alan Walker, who's the assistant professor at Old Dominion University in the Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice. Their book is A Long Dark Shadow, Minor Attracted Persons and Their Pursuit of Dignity. And this is Prostasia Conversations. Prostasia, where Prostasia tries to have conversations on these difficult subjects. And if you found this...
A lot of people, when they hear the term pedophile, they automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors.
Oh man, y'all are pedophiles. For a little bit of money, you will sell a child. Hate the LGBTQ, a bunch of pedophiles. You just see a dollar sign cause y'all are pedophiles. Y'all are sick, hey, y'all a bunch of pedophiles. For a little bit of money, you will sell a child. Hate the LGBTQ, a bunch of pedophiles. You just see a dollar sign cause y'all are pedophiles. Y'all are sick, you're pedophiles. Y'all should be ashamed. Throw them in the fire with the flames. Line them up and let us take aim. How did we get to this place? When grooming kids is something you embrace. I got a gun and it goes something like the bass. It's a crime now and it's time out for these men dressing in drag. Pull a 9 now, time to sign now, you gon' buy now with that flag. I say no to that rainbow, it's no bueno, you're a fag. No halo, got the queso, cause you do it all for the pay. They ain't hiding now, they coming for the kids. They calling me a bigot, but y'all a bundle of twigs. You selling off the children, going to the highest bid. How much you getting paid from the rhinos and all the libs? Y'all might be handed over, I ain't wasting time in prayer. You send your kids to hell, you sick and you don't even care. Maybe we should stone you, get you in the city square. Call it street justice, think before you touch another hair. Oh man, y'all are pedophiles. For a little bit of money, you will sell a child. Hate the LGBTQ, a bunch of pedophiles. You just see a dollar sign cause y'all are pedophiles. Y'all are sick, ayy, y'all a bunch of pedophiles. For a little bit of money, you will sell a child. Hate the LGBTQ, a bunch of pedophiles. You just see a dollar sign cause y'all are pedophiles. Y'all are sick, ayy, y'all a bunch of pedophiles.
Running wild, I think they need to be stoned. They groom me as children in schools when they leaving their home. Y'all say live and let live, and to each is your own, until they disguise it as gay when they creepy and grown. LGBTQ, let God burn them quickly.
Bryson, that's hate speech.
That's why everyone's against me, and they looking for a villain. I'm so glad they picked me. I would say the F word, but they might suspend me. Fag, 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 wait, that's a British cigarette. Pedophiles got certain tendencies, I mean no disrespect. Before you completely cancel me, please let me interject. Don't let distractions stop you from seeing what's the biggest threat. It's a slippery slope. Let them get married and bake their cake. Now it's let them date little kids if that's who they wanna date. Dancing naked in front of children, skirt. Hit the brakes, just wait. The unrepentant will all burn inside the lake.
Man, y'all are pedophiles. For a little bit of money, you will sell a child. Hate the LGBTQ, a bunch of pedophiles. You just see a dollar sign cause y'all are pedophiles. Y'all are sick, ayy, y'all a bunch of pedophiles. For a little bit of money, you will sell a child. Hate the LGBTQ, a bunch of pedophiles. You just see a dollar sign cause y'all are pedophiles. Y'all are sick, ayy, y'all a bunch of pedophiles. To be continued. I mean, we did pretty good this Abomination Month. But until next time, repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand.